Warhammer x LOTM, The Black Emperor by author Jiao Chao Mo. Chapter 754-772. Chapter 754, Changes Displeasing to Tzeentch. Within the Imperium, atop the Rainbow Plateau, stands the Crystal Labyrinth. Every devil within this domain can feel the existence of the Crystal Labyrinth. Paths composed of various crystals are constantly shifting and changing every single instant. They crisscross, spanning throughout the domain of Tzeentch. Hidden passages built of lies and schemes permeate the territories of other gods, connecting the chaotic domains of strife together. Every bend, corner, and dead end is a whim of the Lord of Destiny. At the center of the labyrinth, in a place that cannot be found by those who have not fallen into madness, stands the majestic Impossible Fortress. The walls of the Impossible Fortress gush with every color of light in the spectrum, as well as hues unknown to the material universe. Colored lights intersect at some unknowable node, where countless threads are mixed together. He shifted his gaze from Magnus, whose eyes were changing from red to blue, and cast it toward Purgatory Star. Nimrod, the Hand of Darkness. A face that suddenly grew from his right shoulder repeated in a subtle tone, Nimrod, the Hand of Darkness. Abaddon, change, everything. The joyful tone came to an abrupt halt. As the face on the right shoulder burst like a bubble, a face that suddenly grew from the left leg continued to repeat, Abaddon, change, everything. No. A face growing from the left chest screamed in displeasure, no. Blackstone Fortress, Cadia, the great rift tears the galaxy apart. The face on the right waist repeated in a low tone, Blackstone Fortress, Cadia, the great rift tears the galaxy apart. Silence, wordless. Cadia, the Ascended, Lorgar, the Eye of Night. A thread of destiny before Tzeentch was enveloped in blue light. The large mouth at his waist let out a joyful sound. Cadia, the Ascended, Lorgar, the Eye of Night. 945, M30. Cadia, on the edge of the Eye of Terror, in Segmentum Obscurus. A world yet to be discovered by the Empire. The young girl Ingethel had an expression on her face that did not match her age. In her sleep, she seemed to be praying devoutly. With a head full of jet black hair and a slender, beautiful figure, several skulls hung from her belt. The cloak draped over her shoulders was made of tanned and cured human skin. Her cloak shimmered with the light brown hue of a spoiled peach, with coarse black threads stitching together the heavy leather. Pale pigment was smeared around her beautiful yet eerie purple eyes, depicting the emblems of the various Cadian tribes. She knelt on the ground with her head bowed low, her purple eyes shining as she listened to the voice of the true gods. Ingethel the Chosen, thou art the guide for the gods. Thy voice shall be my oracle. A giant figure abruptly emerged. In the dream, her adult self only reached up to the giant's waist. The giant held a scepter, wore gray armor, and was covered in scrolls and papers. From the giant's smooth head down to his jaw, his entire face was covered in dense, neat rows of text. Ingethel recognized the script. It was extremely similar to the script of Cadia. Born without a teacher, she understood these words instinctively, including the text on the giant's face. They expressed different meanings, prophecies of a bright future, reverent blessings, prayers for the divine power of the gods to assist. Lorgar Aurelian, a blessed name, the favored of the four true gods. Thou shalt guide him and enlighten him to discover the truth. When thy task is complete, the gods shall elevate thee. Thou art Ingethel the Ascended. Ingethel etched Lorgar's figure into her memory, a smile of pleasant surprise filling her face. I shall follow the will of the gods and guide thy favored one to discover the truth. A brilliant light suddenly surged. The young girl of the barbarian tribe received the revelation of the gods. She understood what the universe, the galaxy, interstellar travel, and star maps were. The Eye of Night shall belong to Lorgar, the beloved son of the gods. Thou shalt lead him to find what belongs to him, to go to Answorld and obtain his artifact. I follow thy oracle. Ingethel opened her eyes, her purple pupils full of a light of wisdom that did not match her age. She stood up and walked outside. Wherever she passed, dozens of ragged barbarians draped in strange leathers bowed their heads in unison. Ingethel walked calmly through the crowd to the cave entrance. The barbarians followed her footsteps and looked up at the sky with her. All their eyes shimmered with the same purple color as the turbulent sky. Ingethel raised her arms and looked toward the distant stars, Answorld. I am Ingethel the Chosen. I am the Ascended. The barbarians knelt together, shouting fanatically at the top of their lungs, Ingethel the Ascended. Their language was exactly the same as that of Colchis in the Typing Star territory, countless light years away. At the same moment Ingethel received her revelation, in the third layer of space within the Nation of Disorder. Nimrod looked scrutinizingly at the floating claw before him. He saw that the pitch-black claw from the outside world was enveloped by thick, dark shadows within the Nation of Disorder. A black mist rose in Nimrod's obsidian eyes. His gaze then penetrated the thick shadows, seeing the wriggling red threads and the pitch-black clusters of lines within. Nimrod stared at the faint black threads and the tenuous connection they had with the Hand of Darkness. The uniqueness of the Hanged Man pathway. It is not the Beander characteristic of a dark angel, Nimrod sighed with some regret. He also wanted to possess comprehensive abilities, but Shepherd could not satisfy his needs. While a uniqueness was good, it could not be used right now. Dark Angel would have been just right. The Hanged Man did not have authorities like the Red Priests, Sacrifice or the Twilight Giants, Proxy. Nimrod could not currently rely on the Sephira to utilize this uniqueness. The authorities of the Hanged Man flashed through Nimrod's mind. Hanged Man is the true god who governs the domain of degeneracy, a collection of black shadows and wriggling flesh. His primary authorities: degeneracy, shadow, flesh. The Hanged Man has 5 heads and corresponding shadows, each possessing authority over the domains of shadow, darkness, degeneracy, filth, and mutation. He also contains the concepts and partial symbolism of sin-bearing and sacrifice. Subordinate authorities: filth, mutation. Partial authorities: darkness, sin-bearing, sacrifice. A dark angel can simultaneously release every soul grazed, up to a maximum of 22. These souls completely obey the dark angel's commands and can fully utilize their own abilities, rather than being selected like a shepherd does. As a Primarch, Nimrod's combat power far exceeded the Sequence 5 level. Shepherd provided almost no combat boost for him, whereas Dark Angel could significantly enhance it. If the Hand of Darkness were the Sequence 1-foot Dark Angel, Nimrod could use it after associating with it, but the uniqueness was temporarily unusable. Well, at least the Hanged Man has also fallen into my hands. Counting Red Priest, Demoness, and Twilight Giant, I already possess 4 uniquenesses. After I advance to Sequence 4 and undergo a qualitative change, I should be able to use the Hanged Man and Demoness uniquenesses. For now, at least it can be used to control the Blackstone Fortress. P.S. Finished coding early today, posting early. Chapter 755, The Dice of Prophecy fails to divine for the first time. In the 4th layer of the Nation of Disorder, Nimrod sat high upon his throne, listening to the report from Galan Surik, the chief apothecary of the World Eaters. He was entirely shrouded in a black robe, surrounded by 12 bizarre humanoid corpses. Each was 3 meters tall with slender limbs. Their arms, when spread, were as wide as 2 tables. Their bodies were covered in a layer of reflective carapace, reminding Nimrod of Slaughter and other Eldari, emitting a loathsome sense of superiority. In the early stages of rafen parasitism, the humanoid form does not change. As time passes, all organs for human eating, breathing, and sensory transmission disappear. Following Galan's report, Nimrod looked at the heads of those corpses. Their heads were like black eggs, devoid of organs such as eyes, noses, and mouths. Varys told me that the Psykers felt a powerful psychic shock. The World Eaters, librarians had been disbanded by Angron, so Galan had gradually become accustomed to referring to them as Psykers. They gathered, pooling the power of all Psykers to perform periodic divinations, but found no signs of any alien ships or bases. Varys is certain that the rafen appeared from beyond the boundaries of the star system, launching attacks from an unknown location. Their powerful psychic abilities shocked the Psykers. The Scarlet Scholar took out a data crystal. I performed a psychic divination on the rafen and confirmed they are a race nourished by psychic energy, residing within a certain psychic realm. Nimrod raised his hand with a beckoning motion, and the glowing data crystal fell into his palm. He nodded with satisfaction. You have done well. Beneath his hood, a smile spread across the pale face of Galan, the Scarlet Scholar. It is my honor to carry out your oracle. With a flick of Nimrod's wrist, a crystal vial appeared in his palm. The blood of a Primarch. Diluted at least 10 times more than Alfarius's before drinking. Despite being within the Sephira, Nimrod still took into account the oaths old man Huang had required the Primarchs to swear. He did not explicitly state that this blood belonged to Hannibal. Considering that he had consumed many Xenos and the blood was quite complex, he instructed the Scarlet Scholar to increase the dilution ratio. Feeling the alluringly delicious blood within the crystal vial before him, the Scarlet Scholar joyfully thanked the Black Emperor for the reward. "Thank you for your gift." Nimrod sent Galan, who was eager to enjoy his reward, back to the real world. Then, he extended his spirituality to touch the spiritual orbs of light. He distributed the rafen corpses to Druid Malina Scala, the Scarlet Scholar, Chief Apothecary Mikkel, and Scrolls Professor Thomas, who possessed the Eye of Secrets for research. After a brief thought, Nimrod also gave some to Santiago Borgkamp, who needed to establish special coordinates to promote to Traveler, and Sanchez, who needed to capture a significantly more powerful target alive to promote to Reaper. The remaining 7 corpses were moved to a palace in the first layer to serve as mediums for divining the origin space. He then stood up, took a step forward, and arrived in the 3rd layer to pick up the Dice of Prophecy. The cooldown time has actually increased by directly 1 year and 5 months. After the last divination, I waited for 5 years. The Hand of Darkness is indeed a uniqueness. He turned the triangular pyramid in his hand and glanced at the pitch-black claw in the distance. The Hand of Darkness is a uniqueness. Could the Eye of the Night also be one? A Darkness, Pathway uniqueness. Should I divine Blackstone IV, or the Eye of the Night? Nimrod's tone wavered. Divining the Eye of the Night might significantly increase the cooldown time again. After thinking for a moment, he made a decision. The Blackstone Fortress is in my territory after all. I'll divine the Eye of the Night. Even if the cooldown increases significantly, I can adjust my plans in time. Information about Answorld flashed through Nimrod's mind. The planet where the Eye of the Night is located. The Eye of the Night is embedded in an ancient statue and can fire energy beams, causing device paralysis or internal damage. The Ladyland Rattlings worship that statue, treating it as a deity. Nimrod knew a bit more about Answorld than he did about Purgatory Star. He knew that before the planet submitted to the Imperium, the Ladyland Rattlings already worshipped that statue. When the Chaos forces first attacked, they were repelled by the Astra Militarum composed of Ladyland Rattlings. A standard month later, the Chaos fleet blockaded Answorld and launched a full-scale invasion, killing millions of Rattlings and finally obtaining the Eye of the Night. After the situation on Answorld flashed through his mind, Nimrod chanted silently in his heart. The star map from Carium Gate to Answorld. After chanting it 11 times, he raised his hand and tossed the Dice of Prophecy. Whoosh! As soon as the triangular pyramid left his hand, it hovered right above his palm. Nimrod let out a surprised sound. How is this possible? I know more about Answorld than Purgatory Star. Nimrod mused for a moment and said uncertainly. Could the Eye of the Night have a higher status than the Hand of Darkness? Could it be a Sephira? His voice carried a hint of a tremble. If I don't interfere, the divination will fail. Nimrod took a deep breath, reining in his scattered thoughts. He raised his right hand, and the flagpole appeared in his palm with a whoosh. With a thought from Nimrod, his surroundings changed abruptly, and he arrived in the 2nd layer. The spirituality of the Mentor of Disorder erupted, black mist churned, and a pitch-black altar rose with a rumble. Disordered black arcs filled the surroundings, and giant wings shielded the altar. Spikes shot up into the sky, supporting a pitch-black crown. Nimrod held high the Red Priest uniqueness and spoke in a deep voice in the Dun language. In my name, I bestow the power of the Nation of Disorder upon the Red Priest to assist the Dice of Prophecy's divination. Whoosh! The flag fluttered, and black mist surged upward. The stagnant triangular pyramid suddenly spun and rose rapidly. Its ascent slowed down, but pushed by the black mist, it continued to rise. It paused briefly at the highest point and then slowly fell. With a thought, the flagpole vanished into thin air, and Nimrod raised his hand to catch the triangular pyramid. As expected, it's also in the segmentum obscurus, but not within my territory. He looked at the dim triangular pyramid and sighed softly. This time, the cooldown will likely increase significantly. Nimrod reflected on the scene where the dice of prophecy almost failed its divination for the first time. His eyes sparkled. Could the Eye of the Night really be a Sephira? He ascended into Magnus's first state of mind, calming his agitated thoughts. I shouldn't set my expectations too high yet. Perhaps it's a darkness pathway uniqueness with the authority of concealment, or a wheel of fortune with power over fate and disorder. I also can't rule out something interfering with the divination. Although a Sephira can isolate interference, it's not absolute. There are too many factors affecting divination, including concealment and fate. I don't know much about Answorld. The object of divination is almost equivalent to the Eye of the Night itself. Nimrod then, without much expectation, extended his spirituality to have Winner, Flamini and marionettist William Wood perform divinations. Inside the divination room of the Lord of Fate on the Relic-class battleship, the Lucky, Flamini put down his quill, leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, and silently recited the divination statement. After reciting it 11 times, the Winner rose amidst the curling incense and quickly fell into a deep sleep. His consciousness left his body and was immediately plunged into a dense fog where emotions and feelings converged. The prophecy-type psyker's mind flashed with the information from the data crystal bestowed by the Black Emperor, letting his thoughts drift along with it. No trace, no connection. The Winner looked around in shock. He had never encountered such a situation. Even if that untouchable were standing right beside me, I should still be able to receive a revelation, let alone now that I've had him leave temporarily. Flamini had never encountered the current situation, and as a Winner, and a true master of divination, he had certainly never seen it. The Winner helplessly reined in his thoughts and returned to his physical body. He picked up a sovereign coin from the table and silently thought, Answorld is in danger. After reciting it 11 times, he flipped the coin. The coin tumbled and fell. Clang! It stood steadily on its edge on the tabletop, perfectly upright. The Winner failed to receive even a single revelation. The Winner tried pendulum divination, astrolabe divination, and other methods, but all met with failure. Nimrod was not surprised to learn of the two's failure. After a bit of thought, he decided to dispatch the 10th Battle Group, which was primarily composed of librarians with the Eye of Secrets, and those of the Hanged Man pathway who had high inspiration and could also remain hidden. Chapter 756. Do you have the resolve to devote yourself after death? 949. M30. Segmentum Obscurus, Answorld. 10th Battle Group, Adjutant Sasebo Tezuka of the 36th Company leads 3 squads onto the surface of the Eternal Night World. The dead sun cast not a single ray of light upon this planet. Tresoldi looked around. It was filled with massive, pitch-black stones. What a desolate world. It's hard to imagine life existing here. Augur Matrix Class Master reporting. Scans show no signs of life, but Father told us this world has millions of Ladylin rattlings, Sasebo Tezuka warned. Have the Ladylin rattlings here learned how to turn invisible? Ordonez gripped his bedrock pattern bolter tightly. Those abumans may be small, but with millions of them, it's impossible for there to be no trace at all. Just as Sasebo Tezuka was about to speak, a sudden whistling sound rang in his ears. Enemy attack. Beams of light rained down, striking the Mark III power armor of the Order Shadows, causing thin trails of black smoke to rise from the black plate. The once smooth armor plates became charred and blackened. Sasebo Tezuka turned toward the hillside. Inside his eyepiece, the Auspex box flickered with a blur of red runes, appearing hazy in the darkness. He shouted loudly, "Visual assistance." The Order Shadows could no longer rely on the Auspex boxes to track enemies as they once did, firing from the hip and steadily pouring out a barrage. They raised their bolters, using enhanced visual assistance to fire, much like the solar auxilia. Boom, boom, boom. A dense barrage flew toward the hillside, the roaring explosions tearing the shadowy, small bodies to pieces. The Ladylin rattlings of Answorld did not scream in terror like their kin on other worlds, they ducked down silently and reloaded their weapons in silence. A Ladylin rattling, whose whites of his eyes were completely pitch black, had sweat glands secreting white, thread-like substances. As the white silk drifted, thousands of Ladylin rattlings suddenly emerged. Dozens of light beams struck Tresoldi's eyepiece. Crack, crack. A crack appeared in Tresoldi's eyepiece, rapidly spreading like a spiderweb. PFF'd. Both of Tresoldi's eyes burst, leaving only two empty, bloody holes in his sockets. Bang! Sasebo Tezuka's two hearts jolted. He raised his bedrock pattern bolter and aimed at the slight sound he had just heard. The adamantine-tipped round struck the pitch-black mountain rock and immediately detonated. Boom! The stone shattered, and the ladlein rattling with the pitch-black eyes was blown into fragments. Charge! Sasebo Tezuka knew that ladlein rattlings were as timid as mice. Once their defensive line was breached, the enemy would crumble. The Order shadows ran forward quickly, charging toward the hillside like a high-speed train. The precise rate of fire of the ladlein rattlings was no match for the swift speed of the Astartes. The flashing beams of light were deflected or missed, hitting the mountain rocks and raising plumes of mist. Bang! Sasebo Tezuka was the first to crash into the enemy ranks. Two ladlein rattlings were sent flying by his legs, slamming into the ground and ceasing to move. Boom, boom, boom. The Order shadows fired at their feet, turning clusters of dark shadows into a bloody mist. As Sasebo Tezuka changed his magazine for the fourth time, he glanced at his eyepiece. The red runes had not decreased, the densely packed red dots were like an ocean. The timid ladlein rattlings had not fled, they had surrounded his side. Ordones, cover me. Sasebo Tezuka turned and fired in a rotation, but he felt no sense of security from his back-to-back old friend. His eyepiece was a sea of crimson. The mountains and fields were covered with ladlein rattlings. Tens of thousands of enemies had them completely surrounded, with no suitable direction for retreat. Bang! A dull sound came from behind Sasebo Tezuka, and a black rune in his eyepiece suddenly vanished. Ordones was dead. Sasebo Tezuka's two hearts pumped hard. He angrily swapped magazines and spun his body to spray fire. His gaze swept over the ground, seeing a head that looked like a rotten orange. PFF'd. A blinding light flashed, and a crack suddenly appeared in Sasebo Tezuka's right eyepiece. Just as Sasebo Tezuka was about to raise his gun to fire, he suddenly saw clumps of flesh exploding. One by one, the ladlein rattlings burst apart. A storm of blood swept through the surroundings. The dark shadows vanished in swaths. Lord! Sasebo Tezuka gazed at Lord Ramsay, whose face was identical to their Gene father's. He walked out leisurely, a phantom shadow circling around him. The phantom's beak emitted a piercing shriek, and bullets glowing with eerie light flew into the heads of the ladlein rattlings. His feet left the ground as his body dove forward, his longsword spinning as small heads rolled. A smaller number of phantoms descended from the phantom airships, they should be the attacking party. They had beaks, and beneath their arms was wing-like skin that extended to their ribs. They held a pistol in one hand and a light weapon like a sword in the other. Amidst the deafening roar of artillery, two phantom airships burst into flames. Lord Ramsay calmly raised both arms. The blood storm spiraled outward, and the ladlein rattlings on the hillside exploded in swaths, their bodies merging into the blood mist. Sasebo Tezuka. Ramsay's gaze fell upon the adjutant, recognizing the excellent commander among the faceless ones. As the shepherd spoke, he continued to command one of the two phantoms selected from Sonium 8 to attack. His spiritual body was solid, allowing it to be projected outside his physical form. The veteran, Rose Bishop, also continuously used flesh bombs to blow the ladlein rattlings apart, using their flesh to replenish his energy and maintain his flesh magic. Sasebo Tezuka continued to attack the stragglers who escaped the blood storm, a look of pride appearing on his face. Lord, you know me. Your performance has been outstanding. You were qualified to join my lord's honor guard twice, yet you voluntarily gave it up. The veteran, Rose Bishop, Ramsay looked down at the battlefield, seeing that the honor guard had already routed the ladlein rattlings. He withdrew his hands, and the blood and flesh scattered through the air. A deep shadow rose from the shepherd, and the beaked evil spirit pounced toward him. The shadow, seemingly tangible, enveloped the evil spirit. The evil spirit's beak and body were compressed and squeezed, stuffed back into the shepherd's body. Ramsay said to Sasebo Tezuka, who was staring blankly at where the phantom had vanished, "Few people would make such a choice. It left an impression on me." Sasebo Tezuka snapped out of it. Is this the power Father bestowed upon Lord Ramsay? Power that only royal court monks possess. In his days, hearing Lord Ramsay's words, his deeply buried regret was instantly stirred. I couldn't leave my brothers behind. Tresoldi and Ordonez had trained with him, fought with him, and were closer to him than any other battle brothers. Now, they are dead. He looked sadly at Ordonez's corpse. I wonder if I'll ever have another chance. Ramsay silently scanned the corpses. The ladle and rattlings of Answorld were superior to their kin on other worlds in terms of stealth, vision, and marksmanship. Perhaps because they had a god they believed in, their fighting will was also firmer, causing no small amount of loss to his warband. Ramsay looked away from the corpses and toward Sasebo Tezuka, whose armor was covered in flesh. The veteran, Rose Bishop, raised his right hand and lightly brushed Sasebo Tezuka's hard armor. The flesh condensed into a mass as if it were alive. You have a chance. I will recommend you. This is your last chance. The flesh vanished into the veteran, Rose Bishop's, palm, and he turned to leave. Sasebo Tezuka's eyes shone. Thank you, Lord. I will definitely seize this opportunity. He gazed at Lord Ramsay's back, and a longing couldn't help but arise. He hesitated for a moment, then spoke. Lord, when I return, can I become a member of your guard? Ramsay paused in his tracks and spoke hollowly. My guard members do not only fight alongside me in life. In death, their souls shall also accompany me. They do not sleep after death. They must still devote themselves to me and the Legion. Ramsay slowly turned around, his obsidian eyes staring at Sasebo Tezuka. Do you have such resolve? Sasebo Tezuka stared at Lord Ramsay, whose face was identical to his father's. He knelt on one knee. I am willing. He did not have the honor of serving by father's side forever, but to follow the Lord was also a glory beyond reach. Ramsay looked at Sasebo Tezuka and nodded. Good. Chapter 757. Tzeentch, the plan failed, I need a new plan. Chapter 757. Tzeentch, the plan failed, I need a new plan. In the eternal night of Answorld, Chief Librarian Thomas looked up at the black onyx peaks. The scrolls professor shouted loudly in the Dun language, freeze. Thomas flicked his hand, and a grayish-black scroll flew over the heads of the Ladelan crowd. Streaks of crystal-clear light cascaded down, freezing the Ladelan people within. Thomas's eyes, filled with mystical significance, stared at the dozens of Ladelan people inside the ice shards. Ever since he became a mystery prior, his eye of secrets, vision, which could never be closed, reflected a thick blackness on the bodies of the Ladelan people. This blackness was something Ladelan people from other worlds did not have. Another difference was that their hands did not radiate the light common to their kin in other worlds. The biggest difference was still their extraordinarily firm will. The Black Emperor did not want to crush all the Ladelan people of this world. His divine oracle was to investigate every peak to see if a statue existed. Once it was confirmed there was none, the Order shadows would immediately shift their target. Through psychic perception, Thomas had basically confirmed that the statue the Ladelan people worshipped was in this area. Now he needed to confirm if it was on this specific peak. Thomas waved his hand and said to the two servitors beside him, guard. The scrolls professor then pulled a pale black parchment scroll from his waist and ignited it with spirituality. Wind walk. The pale black scroll erupted in cyan flames, snapping loudly as it drifted. Whoosh. A hurricane rose out of thin air, but it was concentrated only around Thomas. The hurricane surrounding him pushed his body upward, beginning the ascent up the mountain. The Ladelan people raised their weapons, firing dense beams of light at the black-armored giant in the air. Thomas twisted his body, as if riding a griffin in the world where the chief librarian resided, dodging left and right to evade the attacks. The mental psyker put on the howling mask, his throat vibrating as he let out a shrill howl. The ear-piercing scream echoed within the minds of the Ladelan people. They let out squeaking sounds and scattered in all directions as if waking from a dream. A flash of astonishment crossed Thomas's eyes. The firm-willed Ladelan people of Answorld had suddenly lost their mental composure. He didn't dwell on the reason, pulling out another, wind walk, scroll to accelerate his ascent. The gale whistled, and in an instant, he climbed 1,000 meters, the summit coming into view of his mystical eyes. A statue. Thomas felt a surge of joy and involuntarily took the entire statue into his mystical gaze. A graceful young girl, her slender arms raised and crossed above her head. Her body was elegantly twisted, as if she were dancing. Youthful, beautiful, dreamlike. Lilith, the goddess of dreams and the maiden of the Aeldaries' three goddesses. Thomas knew from the data provided by the Black Emperor that the Ealdari revered Issa as the mother goddess and the Crone Morai Heg as the goddess of the aged. Could it be, the Leydalan people, their firm will is, falling into a dream, in the dream, they aren't afraid, not good. I'm falling, into a dream. Thomas's mystical eyes were stained with a hazy shadow, and the surrounding mist thickened. In his alarm, he immediately entered the Thelema mindset, then slowly ascended to the third level of the mindset. Thomas gradually regained his thoughts. He did not continue to approach, pulling out a brown leather scroll from his waist. Short-sightedness. Thomas's mystical eyes grew dim, as if something was blocking his vision. After weakening the effect of the Eye of Secrets, he turned his body downward while simultaneously opening his communicator. My lord, I have found the statue you spoke of. You have done well. Evacuate the peak, I will arrive immediately. The majestic voice of the Black Emperor sounded over the Vox channel. By your command. After Thomas landed back on the ground, he immediately led the librarians to evacuate the mountain area. A moment later, he saw a speck of golden light in the sky falling onto the peak like a meteor. Nimrod flew to the summit and immediately saw countless Leydalan people lying densely around the statue. Suddenly, they all woke up at the same time, raising their guns to fire. Countless flashing energy beams shot toward him. From the right eye of the Lilith statue, an almost imperceptible beam shot out from the dense darkness. Light and shadow flickered in the Primarch's eyes as a piercingly colorful light shot toward him in his vision. His body suddenly went cold. The Eye of the Night. The mentor of disorders, spirituality erupted. He took a step forward and suddenly landed in front of the statue. The dense beams shot into the sky, leaving streaks of colored light. Black mist rose from Nimrod's hand as he tentatively reached into the right eye of the Lilith statue. Swoosh! The Eye of the Night suddenly disappeared. It's not a Sephira. Nimrod thought with disappointment. If it were a Sephira, the nation of disorder could not have taken it in. The Eye of the Night, the anomaly during the dice of prophecy divination, the eternal night world Answorld, the Leydalan rattling's dream. It is very likely the uniqueness of the darkness pathway. Though it's not a Sephira, it's still quite good. After all, it is a uniqueness. His disappointment vanished in a flash as he comforted himself. I originally came to find the artifact to control the Blackstone Fortress. Gaining 2 uniquenesses is already an unexpected joy. At least, my goal has been achieved. Nimrod thought of the original owners of the Hand of Darkness and the Eye of the Night. Abaddon, since you couldn't keep either of the 2 artifacts, you might as well have neither. Nimrod remembered that not only was the Hand of Darkness given to Mortarion by Abaddon and subsequently stolen and reclaimed by Avrain, but the Eye of the Night was also reclaimed by Inquisitor Grifax in the 42nd millennium. Thinking of this, the corners of his mouth couldn't help but curl up. Nimrod found joy in having snatched 2 artifacts from Abaddon. After calming his mood, he couldn't help but recall the anomaly during the dice of prophecy divination. His brow furrowed slightly as he thought in puzzlement. The Eye of the Night was not activated, and the authority of concealment was not fully in effect. Otherwise, the future Moriana could not have prophesied it. Furthermore, he wasn't directly divining the Eye of the Night, it only indirectly involved a portion of the concealed uniqueness. The anomaly during the dice of prophecy divination was too unmystical. Although he was not a Beander specializing in mystical pathways, nor did he have the prophetic talents of Magnus, Sanguinius, or Conrad Kurz, he had read extensively from Flow books and gained a lot of Ealdari knowledge from the mind of Warmaster Slotta, who, while not specializing in it, still had some understanding. The knowledge Nimrod had accumulated in this area was not inferior to that of Magnus or Beanders skilled in divination. After comparison, he could roughly confirm the difficulty of the divination. Besides concealment, only fate can interfere with divination. Abaddon, the chosen one of the Chaos Gods. Could it be that because he was involved, it caused the anomaly? No. That's not right. Divining the Hand of Darkness was different from the Eye of the Night. While Nimrod was pondering, beyond the veil, inside the impossible fortress of the Imperium, the strings of fate snapped silently, rippling into new strings of shimmering light. The strings of fate I wove, the plan, failed. The face growing from Tzeentch's left chest whispered repeatedly, the strings of fate I wove, the plan, failed. The Cursed One has not yet destroyed Monarchia. Lorgar's time of enlightenment has not arrived. Nimrod is faster. As the face on his left chest vanished like a bubble, the face growing from his right leg spoke in surprise, Monarchia has not been destroyed. Lorgar's time of enlightenment has not arrived. Nimrod is faster. I need a new plan. The face on his right shoulder flickered with the light of wisdom. I need a new plan. The hands of the Fateweaver moved irregularly, as countless strings of fate danced in a chaotic tangle. Chapter 758, Tzeentch's newly woven plan. Within the impossible fortress of the Imperium, Tzeentch's hands moved, surrounded by swirling multicolored light. Blackstone Fortress. Grell. His voice was joyful, and the face growing from his right chest repeated in a deep voice, Blackstone Fortress. Grell. Colored light flared in Tzeentch's eyes, and an illusory image appeared before him. He raised his right hand, from which faces continuously sprouted. He reached out to grab a small black dot. The small black dot grew rapidly, transforming into a black Gothic ship. Ape Field. Space Monkey. Old Ones. The large mouth growing at Tzeentch's waist spoke eerily, Ape Field. Space Monkey. Old Ones. He raised his hand, light flowing between his fingers. His hand flicked out slowly, grasping another fleet, weaving together shining strands of silk. A new plan. Change. As the mouth at his waist vanished, the face growing from his left leg whispered joyfully, a new plan. Change. 950. M30. Cadia, on the edge of the Eye of Terror. A world not yet discovered by the Imperium. The young girl Ingethel fell into a deep sleep, a pious expression on her face. She knelt on the ground, praising the names of the Chaos Gods. Suddenly, a voice rang out. Chosen One, Ingethel, my lord. She bowed low, performing a pious salute. Lorgar's pace is too slow, he has lost the artifact destined for him. Ah! Ingethel let out a cry of alarm. My lord, is there any chance for him to make amends and reclaim his artifact? He is the beloved son of the four gods, believing in the gods with all his heart, he shall receive their gifts. He will not always be the loser, he will find strength in his faith. Ingethel listened to the true words. I will guide him, I will enlighten him. At the same moment Ingethel woke from her dream, in the third layer of space within the nation of disorder. Nimrod gazed at the pitch-black eyeball floating before him, surrounded by black threads of rules. The uniqueness of the darkness pathway. There was no disappointment in his tone, since taking the Eye of the Night into the nation of disorder, he knew it was not a Sephira. A pity I cannot utilize, darkness, yet, otherwise, in the real world, I could ensure I remain unobserved. It could also conceal my traces and mislead prying eyes and divination. The authorities of darkness flashed through Nimrod's mind. Primary authority, darkness, concealment. Partial authority, fear, spirituality, misfortune, and the disasters brought by it. I am only sequence 5, yet I have already obtained 5 uniquenesses. I really am lucky. Though for now, I can only utilize Red Priest and Twilight Giant. He looked at the pitch-black claw in the distance. The Hand of Darkness and Eye of the Night are also powerful artifacts, capable of spanning countless light years to control the Blackstone Fortress. Nimrod then looked toward the slowly rotating black glass. As for the empty glazed jade, I don't dare activate it for the time being. Next, I can go and take Blackstone 4 within the Cyclops star cluster. He gazed at the dim black triangular prism and sighed. I wonder how long I will have to wait. As Nimrod lamented, in the humid equatorial region of the planet Tyrannogia, hot rain pelted down on 200 recruits of the 5th Legion. Halen Swensalen stood on the Plastreet Plaza, his power armor coated in cream white and gold red livery. It was not the black livery he yearned for. It was the opposite, white. Halen's memory returned to Terra, to an unforgettable day at the Amandor Center. The sliding door opened, and he stepped into the dim room. Sir. Halen Swensalen. The person at the desk had dusky skin, with an implant drill extending from the right side of his face down to his chin. His right eye was natural flesh, while his left eye was embedded with a red glowing laser bionic eye. Yes. Halen stood straight. Your training here has concluded. You have passed the first stage, recruit selection and physical conditioning. I am ready to serve, Halen answered loudly. Very well. You will proceed to the moon to undergo further stages of training, skill training, gene therapy, and psychological conditioning. You will undergo organ implantation. Under Halen's expectant gaze, the dusky-skinned man looked down to check his desk. A series of runes flashed across the desktop. Your squad consists of 33 people, you are ranked 17th. That was an excellent squad, there is no shame in that. Halen's eyes dimmed upon hearing his rank. Instructors from the Order Shadows usually selected from the top 5. But receiving the others' praise, a flicker of hope couldn't help but rise in his eyes. Thank you for your praise. Now, there is an issue. The Order Shadows did indeed select you as an alternate. The cold, brief words caused a sharp light to flash in Halen's eyes. But they exceeded their recruitment quota, and some legions are clearly understrength. So, they weren't able to take you on as an extra. If you had ranked 10th or higher, things would be different. You could have gone to your preferred legion, but as it stands. Nimrod's marble statue-like face flashed through Halen's mind, along with that shining war banner the Emperor had given him. He had carved that shadow-like pattern onto his iron bed and into his heart. He clenched his palms, he had worked desperately every day, yet he had still failed. Reassignment is common, it's nothing to be ashamed of. Reassignment. The word was like a heavy punch to his chest. Halen knew the strict working style of this selection agency, it accepted no questioning, but he still blurted out. I don't accept reassignment. A red light hit him. Swensalen, is our job to cater to your wishes? No, sir. Halen lowered his head. Do we work here to cater to the wishes of the recruits? No, sir. Halen's head dropped even lower. Others have accepted reassignment as well. Do you think they all did so willingly? I suppose not, sir. Halen's gaze was bleak. Just 7 ranks off. You will depart for the moon within 2 weeks. Halen looked up. Sir, could I? You have been assigned to the 5th Legion. The 5th Legion, the White Scars, the mysterious barbarians. It wasn't the worst-case scenario, the Wolves of Fenris, nor was it the World Eaters. Swensalen was the 17th to be transferred, he was the 3rd from the bottom among the first round of 19. The achievements of the White Scars were not ranked 3rd from the bottom, just as the Space Wolves and World Eaters were not at the bottom either. The reclusive White Scars, their liaison officers, like their legion, had never come to Amandor. Lorgar sat alone in the back row of the War Council, yet the word-bearer's liaisons could pick from the elite top 10. The Order Shadows were second only to the Luna Wolves and could often pick extra recruits. I know nothing about them, Halen realized. You will have plenty of time to learn about them. Halen buried Nimrod's figure deep in his heart and worked hard to learn Korchan. The completely alien syllables of the strange Shigori's language taxed even his enhanced brain. The difficulty lay not in a vast vocabulary or complex grammar, but in the unique vocalizations and subtle variations. What Halen found even harder to accept was the introverted style and isolationism. But over the course of 14 years, he gradually began to appreciate their extraordinary resilience and tenacious will, especially their boundless energy. As Halen was lost in thought, Yesuge Noyan Khan came before him. His short and lean frame was just like that of other Chagorians. Halen. Yes, my lord. Halen gathered his thoughts and answered quickly. Where on Terra are you from? The Nordic Peninsula. Halen tilted his left cheek, revealing the scar carved a few weeks ago. Yesuge Noyan Khan nodded with satisfaction, took a curved power sword from the honor guard, and held it high above Halen's head. You were once Halen of the Nordic Peninsula. Now that you joined Chagatai's tribe, your former life no longer exists. What name will you use to mark yourself? Halen had pored over many Korchan dictionaries and history books, eventually selecting a name from the legends of the Talskar tribe, an attendant of an ancient Khan. He had spent 100 years in the wilderness, yet showed no signs of aging upon returning to the tribe. Torgan. Yesuge Noyan Khan handed the curved power sword to him. You are now a member of the tribe. Torgan. You are now a member of the Brotherhood, only death can take you away. May your death be far in the future, and may your deeds in life be filled with glory. Torgan took the curved power sword, he was more skilled with straight-edged weapons and would need time to adapt. For the Great Khan. Torgan bowed deeply, trying to dispel the lingering memories in his heart. Of the majestic, black-armored, golden-winged giant. Chapter 759, Grell Abyss. The Warp. The boiling ocean of primordial non-materiality is a spiritual plane, a realm of infinite change and wanton will. 9 armed transport ships of the von Valensieus family, enveloped in Geller field bubbles, flickered and twisted as they sailed along a stable route. Shining colored lights suddenly surged, stirring up a violent hurricane. The 9 bubbles tumbled and drifted, deviating from their original course. The rogue traitor von Valensieus family's armed transport ship, the Connaught, shook violently. On the bridge, the lumen lights flickered on and off. The bright lights emitted an eerie blue glow. Ibrahima, the fleet's commanding captain, opened the communicator. "Mr. Vischer, I need to know what's happening now." Eerie cries echoed through the audio channel, mixed with intermittent roars. Tens of seconds later, a weak voice came through. "Captain, we've deviated from our course. Can you guide the fleet back to the route?" Silence lasted for dozens of seconds, then the navigator's voice spoke again. "Unfortunately, no," his voice was weary. "We cannot reach Abyss Port." Ibrahima was ordered to lead the fleet from the rogue traitor's agricultural world, Zavalik, to transport agricultural products to supply Abyss Port, the largest port in the colonized new district. "We were carried by a sudden tide to another abyss, a true abyss." Grell. A chill ran through Ibrahima via the audio channel. Grell Abyss. The most dangerous place in the colonized new district, a stronghold of orcs. Ibrahima had read the family's navigation logs. Even when the Midu's bloodlust permeated the entire colonnade abyss, their tendrils could not penetrate deep into Grell Abyss. Countless orcs spread throughout the star system. After the Lord King led the Order Shadows to liberate the colonnade abyss, Grell remained an abyss. The ships deliberately avoided this star system, staying away from the invisible Forbidden Zone. "You must find a way, immediately." Ibrahima's breathing was ragged, unable to maintain his usual respectful attitude towards the distinguished imperial noble. "Unfortunately, there is no way." 951. M30. The Geller field disintegrated, rippling waves of radiation, and the 9 ships were scattered into different star systems of Grell Abyss. Piercing shrieks echoed within the warp engine, guiding the energy used to tear open the door to the immaterial realm, churning and surging, gradually increasing to critical mass. The engine core melted and deformed, its internal energy rapidly growing to dangerous levels, drawing energy from the difference between the warp dimension and the real space of the material world. Strange circular radiation emanated from the bloated mass of intertwined matter and energy, with the entire spectrum clearly visible. The radiation spread, its light overpowering the orange glow of the star, illuminating the entire void. The orcs in the asteroid belt were the first to discover the intruding prey, and they shouted in unison, "Wog!" The Connaught's heavy cylindrical void engine rapidly activated, its violent emergency return trailing flames and debris, carving a bright path through Grell Abyss. On the bridge, Ibrahima roared, "Helmsman, brake, restart the warp engine. Mr. Vischer, you must replan the route, anywhere, as long as we can leave this damned green-skinned abyss." He nervously looked at the holographic strategic table, then took a deep breath. It was densely covered with red runes. Threat vectors climbed rapidly, the terrifying numbers far exceeding his imagination. Ibrahima looked up again, towards the visual display screen. Over 100 cobbled-together pieces of scrap metal drifted closer. Behind them was an asteroid, its surface covered with thousands of peaks and ridges. "Fire! Chief of Artillery, fire!" Ibrahima gripped the holographic tactical table, parallel laser runes flashed, and torpedoes flew in parabolas. However, the red runes still surged forward. The orc attack was devoid of tactics, they rushed forward savagely. The Connaught did not turn, its broadside cannons already firing, engaging the entangled enemy ships. Ibrahima issued no further commands, staring at the approaching behemoth. He sighed softly, looking up at the main visual display screen. Orcs with crude rocket packs took off from the asteroid, their wide mouths roaring incessantly. Boom! Ibrahima drew his chainsword and propped it on the ground. He pushed up his respirator, covering his face, and turned to look out the viewing window. Molten glass rained down, and ugly rocks wrapped in fire burst in. Roar! Thousands of green monsters with fangs surged in like a spore mist erupting from a fungal colony. For von Valensieus, Ibrahima raised the Vostonia pattern laser pistol gifted by rogue traitor Lewis, aiming at the green skin wrapped in fire. Sizzle. His body swayed slightly, but the laser beam still flew true, hitting the green skin's right eye. The shining beam hissed as it pierced the green skin's brain. Bang! The orc's corpse crashed down, its cracked head pouring out molten fire. Roar. A massive figure, at least 2 heads taller than the other orcs, roared and charged directly at Ibrahima. His large foot stomped on a rolling, dodging officer. With a bang, the officer was trampled into a bloody pulp. Sizzle. The laser beam Ibrahima fired struck the jumbled scrap metal, sizzling with black smoke. The green skin didn't slow down at all, its shadow, cast by the flickering lumen lights, enveloped Ibrahima's slender body. The disgusting smell of mold assailed him, penetrating the filter. Ibrahima's stomach churned, making him want to dry heave. He gritted his teeth, his twitching fingers continuously pulling the trigger. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Beams of shining light shot at the tattered steel armor, plumes of black smoke rising. Ibrahima pressed the activation rune on his Vostonia pattern chainsword, the motor roared, and the teeth vibrated. He ducked to avoid a cleaving-toothed great axe, swung his chainsword to cut, and simultaneously pulled the trigger repeatedly. Amidst grating friction, sparks flew, and the tattered parts on the green skin's waist and abdomen clattered down. The green skin grinned, raised its toothed great axe, and brought it down, striking the chainmail. Clang! Violent force drove the toothed great axe, cutting through multiple layers of cast iron armor plates. The green skin kicked away a corpse and roared loudly at the tech boys holding wrenches. Lads, bring back everything from Tzeentch for me. Virgil will lead you to Tzeentch world. We're gonna smash every shrimp. Steal their shootas, their big iron bits, everything of theirs. Green mist surged in the minds of all the orcs, and they raised their weapons. Wog. The orc warlord Virgil roared loudly. The orc boys howled, wog, excitedly, following the orc warlord, surging deeper into the ship, 1 standard year later. A million fanged throats roared in unison. The fleets of the 9 orc warlords, surrounding the asteroid fortress, left Grell Abyss. A surging green tide, like a breached dam, poured towards the Susho Stellar Strait. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. And please support the author by link in description. Chapter 760, The Orc Tide Divides the Ramirez-class Star Fort. 953. M30. Colonnade New District, the Susho Stellar Strait, 4.13 light-years away from the Grell Abyss. The Ramirez-class Star Fort, Castleberg, guarded the entrance to the Star Strait. For a large-scale orc tide to break into the Colonnade New District, it had to pass through the Susho Stellar Strait. Other areas were either blocked by warp storms or contained chaotic asteroid fields, allowing only scattered orc vessels to pass, posing no significant threat. The Susho Stellar Strait was the only navigable route for large-scale orc passage from the Grell Abyss. Defending it meant the orcs would not truly threaten the Colonnade New District. In the nearly a century since Castleberg was deployed, the magnificent Void Fortress had repeatedly crushed the orc tides surging from the abyss. A piercing alarm suddenly rang out in the central area of the Ramirez-class Star Fort. Gomez, the librarian and diviner psyker of the 6th Battle Group, inspected the tactical data inside his helmet. He strode quickly to the divination table, lit the incense, and placed his hand on the crystal ball. 9 seconds later, the crystal ball still showed no reaction. Gomez then ascended to the 3rd level of Magnus's mental state, freeing his body of light from his physical form. He looked down upon the pale red battle will in deep black fear of the auxiliary army soldiers. The vibrant pale red battle will in blue rational order of the Battle Brothers. The diviner psyker loosened his locked mind, allowing his thoughts to drift. He drifted aimlessly through the mist, trying to catch the thread. The body of light gradually dimmed during the journey, and Gomez began to feel tired. He reined in his thoughts, allowing the body of light to return to his physical form. Gomez stood silently for a few seconds before opening the communicator. Company Commander, I cannot divine anything. I cannot provide you with effective information. I understand. The company commander quickly hung up the communication. Gomez raised his hand to press the activation button, then pushed open the hatch. 2 servitors standing guard at the door followed him, one on his left and one on his right. Gomez quickly arrived at the strategic command room, and the moment he stepped inside, the image projected by the main holographic projector captured his attention. An asteroid fortress. A haphazardly assembled engine shroud several kilometers wide was deeply embedded in the bedrock, shining with a strange crimson light. Gomez's eyes twitched. The rugged surface was covered with massive orbital howitzers and torpedo launchers. The incoming asteroid fortress had more weapons than the one 15 years ago. Streams of laser fire, ejected from the southern quadrant in rows, pierced the void and struck the asteroid fortress. Steam clouds flashed and burned, and the threat vector rapidly decreased. Gomez stepped forward, looking around. The officers were ensconced within the mimic chambers, and dense streams of numbers and runes surged across the pillars. The thrall crewmen nervously pulled and pushed switches on the operating consoles. Clattering automatic telegraphs recited, in binary language, reports on friendly and enemy forces in the void, damage reports, and weapon firing plans. Tech priests occasionally spat out crucial information, feeding it back to the commander. His gaze swept across the video screen. Endless torpedoes pouring out of the central quadrant were launched to overwhelm the Greenskin's scrap fleet. Librarian Gomez's brain calculated rapidly. He approached the company commander and stated his conclusion. A powerful orc warlord, but his scrap fleet will still be destroyed by us. That's right, the company commander said. The macro cannons in the East Burrow quadrant are ready. Enemy vessels have entered the firing arc. The mechanical voice of the red-robed tech priest sounded. Each quadrant of the Ramirez-class star fort was equipped with different weapon systems, and 3 adjutants and the company's chief techmarine commanded the 4 quadrants respectively. It was the techmarine team that controlled the East Burrow quadrant. The recoil from the volley of macro cannons was absorbed by the magnificent Ramirez-class star fort. The angry static of the machine spirit's roar surged across the main holographic projector. The interface's fluorescence overwhelmed Gomez's vision. The light continued to shine. By the time Gomez's vision recovered, the orc asteroid fortress had been torn apart. Void flashes and shining electromagnetic pulses were the only traces it left behind. Gomez let out a small sigh of relief. Although he didn't know why he hadn't received any premonition, at least the orc invasion had been defeated. Alert! The tech priest's cold voice suddenly rang out. Threat vector is climbing. 90.2, 90.5, 94.13. The Ramirez-class star fort's threat vector was set on a percentage scale, and exceeding 90 represented a devastating threat to the star fort. The company commander stared intently at the main holographic projector. Confirm the source of the threat. 4 orc asteroid fortresses, the tech priest's mechanical voice reported with a slight tremor. 6. Gomez's pupils dilated, instantly engulfing the whites of his eyes. Only the most powerful orc warlord within the Grell Abyss could possess a single asteroid fortress. Now, there were 6, no, counting the one just destroyed, there were 7. 8. The tech priest's mechanical eyes flashed red. Threat vector 100. The company commander quickly switched communication channels and roared, Northern Quadrant, full attack. Crackle. The lumen lights in the command room suddenly went out, and the automatic telegraphs weakly clattered to a stop. The plasma weapons in the Northern Quadrant were the most lethal weapons in Castleberg's armory, instantly draining the immense energy pumped by the punishment-class reactor when operating at full power. White-green plasma energy surged tens of thousands of kilometers high, and blazing lightning was visible to the naked eye. Gomez narrowed his eyes, his gaze fixed on the main holographic projector. The massive debris cloud was reflected little by little in his obsidian eyes. The asteroid fortress was incinerated to ash, leaving no visible wreckage. Remaining, 7 asteroid fortresses. The tech priest's broadcast was unusually jarring. Enemy attack. A crimson sphere flashed by like a meteor. The asteroid fortress slammed into the fortress-class energy shield, and the explosion, accompanied by the alarm, echoed throughout the command room. Northern Quadrant shield shattered, 40.9% of the area lost, impact. The tech priest's broadcast abruptly stopped. Boom! Castleberg tilted and capsized. A black shadow suddenly rose in Gomez's mind, and he shouted a warning, danger. The librarian raised his force staff, and runes flickered simultaneously on him and the 2 servitors. A dazzling light suddenly erupted. Boom! Another asteroid fortress smashed into the central area. The dome burst open, and massive towers, bridges, and protective walls crashed into the strategic command room. Bang! A tower crashed onto the company commander, crushing the order's shadows into a black smear. The sharp corner of the tower screamed as it slammed against the psychic shield. Stars burst before Gomez's eyes, and blood spilled from his nose and mouth. Bang! Bang! Both servitors exploded simultaneously. Gomez staggered backward. Bang! A greenskin crashed down into the tilted main strategic room. Towering over Gomez, it swung its mechanical twin claws. Gomez drew his force sword, and a faint light sprang up. Slash! Blue light sliced through the greenskin's mechanical right arm. Whoosh! The mechanical left arm tore through the air and clamped onto the black armor. Armor plates shattered, and flesh flew everywhere. The greenskin raised the librarian's corpse high and roared, "Wog!" Orc looters carrying crude rocket packs whistled down and landed all around. They roared loudly. Virgil! Wog! The orc tide carved up the Ramirez-class star fort, Castleberg. 7 great orc warlords roared as they charged toward different star sectors of the colonized new district. Chapter 761, Fighting Greenskins, We Valhallans Know It Best. 954, M30. Cyclops Star Cluster, Milstar. Priest Jeremy of the 6th Battle Group's 13th Company, holding his Crozius, stood upon the city wall, gazing solemnly at the sky. Since the end of the Randon War, the Cyclops Star Cluster has been developing vigorously under the grand plan of the Lord of Fate. 100 worlds were classified as industrial worlds, and Milstar is one of them. The world beneath Jeremy's feet was named Milstar because of its 15 large agricultural processing complexes and 31 synthetic food complexes. The fruits produced on Zavalik, the agricultural world rewarded to rogue trader Louis von Valens by the Gene Father, would be processed here into salads and transported to restaurants on worlds such as Abyss Port and Monakia. In addition to agricultural light industry, Milstar has also developed lasgun and Bellic tank manufacturing over the past 15 years. This originated from a mutual aid treaty signed between Milstar and Valhalla, the exclusive recruitment world of the 4th Battle Group, to provide supplies for the auxiliary army named Valhallan Ice Warriors by the Gene Father. Jeremy looked up at the sky as ugly landers pierced through the morning clouds, streaking into the atmosphere with trails of fire. Now, he was incredibly grateful for this mutual aid treaty. The order shadows he commanded numbered only 200, making it impossible to withstand the incoming greenskin tide. But with 36 regiments of Valhallan Ice Warriors, they were a formidable force. Jeremy looked down at the anti-aircraft artillery arrays, where the Valhallan Ice Warriors' 4th Artillery Regiment had taken over from the Planetary Defense Force. They adjusted the strength and caliber of the barrels and carriages, setting the optimal firing arcs. Jeremy's superhuman brain performed combat simulations and could find nothing to correct. Ground-based defense turrets roared, firing volleys at the scrap-built ships, their swift strikes destroying every aircraft in sight. Burning fragments of the shattered scrap ships blazed, debris falling like rain. 2 orc transport ships attempted to rush toward the city, their tusked prows, roars echoing through the spires, the stench of fungus wafting over. Jeremy did not intervene. He watched the Valhallans at the 5 batteries move quickly, adjusting the turrets' orientation. They showed no hesitation, their cold movements meticulous. The 5 anti-aircraft turrets vied to fire volleys, the rockcrete trembling. The daring orc transport ships were torn apart by shells, their burning wreckage falling to the ground. The Valhallan Ice Warriors' 15th Infantry Regiment, stationed within the city, split into 31 squads to hunt down the scattered wreckage and slaughter the greenskin survivors. Boom! Jeremy's body swayed as the city wall beneath his feet took its first hit. The orc ships flew beyond the range of the wall's defensive fire, opening up to release massive junk titans. The junk giants crashed into the forest, crushing swaths of fir trees. They rumbled forward with heavy footsteps, clouds of dust rising behind them. Each iron pack beast was as large as a warhound titan, with howdahs made of mixed scrap metal hanging from their swaying backs. Howling orcs hopped about, operating incomprehensible cannons that emitted black smoke before the shells even left the barrels. Reload! The artillery regiment commander ordered calmly under the fluttering white war banner. The wall trembled again. The heavy artillery positions opened fire. Then a second time, a third, the greenskins roared as they drove their tattered iron pack beasts forward, ruthlessly trampling their own kind as they approached the wall. The green tide surged, mouths agape, rushing toward the wall. Jeremy raised his archaeotech pistol and fired a beam harvested from the planet's radiation layer. The brilliant light flew into a tattered howdah, incinerating a greenskin to ash. As two boys scrambled in terror from the molten lump of iron, the bard's ears twitched as the crackle of thousands of lasguns harmonized into a strange and evocative song. Singing of discipline, strength, and courage. The song was filled with fury. Dense beams screamed as they tore through green flesh, ripping the orcs apart, striking them down, and turning them into pulp beneath the feet of their kin. The first wave to reach the wall consisted of 25 orcs, their jump packs smoking as they propelled them onto the battlements. Less than a breath after they landed, bayonets pierced the eyes and throats of the shorter orcs. The larger orcs were skewered through the chest and legs by swarming Valhallans and kicked off the wall. Piles of greenskin corpses accumulated at the foot of the wall, foul-smelling fluids seeping into the ashen soil. Woo! Hundreds of horns blared as the greenskins retreated in complete disarray, devoid of any order. Jeremy's finger kept pulling the trigger as he watched with admiration the Valhallans maintaining their cold rate of fire. The Valhallans' fury in punishing the greenskins was just as it had been when punishing their madness before. Hundreds of greenskins fell continuously, killed in the brutal volleys. Jeremy opened the Vox channel, his naturally booming voice echoing through it. Valhallan Ice Warriors, I salute you. Most of you are fighting for the first time, yet you have not been intimidated by these hideous Xenos. I now believe that praise given to you, well deserved, a Valhallan has ice in their veins, just as it covers their home world. The Vox channel remained silent for a moment before the low voice of the 12th Infantry Regiment's commander spoke. Lord Jeremy, thank you for your praise. Even in victory and receiving praise from the Order Shadows, the Valhallans remained coldly disciplined. Fighting greenskins is what we Valhallans know best. Every Valhallan, man or woman, can kill 2 greenskins. Jeremy couldn't help but recall the records he had seen when learning about Valhallan history. A comet struck Valhalla, turning the entire world into an ice world. The inhabitants were forced to dig into the subterranean ice to build new shelters, staying as close to the planet's core as possible to enjoy the warmth of its residual heat. The harsh survival conditions tempered the Valhallans' indomitable spirit, making them determined to face and overcome any difficulty. Before the establishment of the Order Shadows, a massive orc wog invaded Valhalla. The Valhallans won a bloody and protracted victory through their own perseverance and natural environmental advantages. Because of this, they were obsessed with revenge against the greenskin race, throwing themselves into battle with the same bravery and tenacity they used to defend their homeland. Another signature act of foresight and wisdom by Lord Flamini. After Flamini took over as Lord, he won the support of many rogue traitor families like the von Valensous, navigator families like the Vishers, and numerous astropath families, gaining massive financial backing. He had also established a good relationship with Pat even before he became the chief priest. The number of priests within the warband exceeded the average, and he also gained access to Lord Pat's political resources on Terra. Terran elites like Pyake injected funds and political resources. The Cyclops star cluster developed rapidly in less than a century, with several worlds like Milstar now rivaling most of the Imperium's industrial worlds. His vision was widely acclaimed within the Legion. He could spot every hidden opportunity and make good use of it. Jeremy reined in his thoughts and continued. You have earned my respect. I will open the warehouses for you, I'll give you as many cans of Ovega meat as you can eat. You will receive a serving of fruit salad with every meal. Restrained cheers broke out sporadically over the Vox channel. Before the Order Shadows descended from the sky, the Valhallans toiled in dark caves, cultivating nutrient sludge to sustain the populace. This food, which had no flavor other than filling the stomach, was extremely precious on Valhalla. Even more precious than life itself. Stealing even a handful was punishable by death. After the Order Shadows arrived, the Valhallans' diet was enriched, and they could occasionally eat foods like oatmeal. The auxiliary army's treatment was even better, tastier nutrient porridge was their usual fare, and they often received cans of Ovega meat, with occasional cans of tuna. But now, they could enjoy a feast, and even have fruit salad. After the sporadic cheers subsided, Jeremy continued. Once we have driven the foul greenskins from this world, the wine cellars will be opened for you, and the wine sealed away 42 years ago will be yours. You may not know that the fine wines of Milstar use brewing techniques introduced from Lord Primarch Fulgrim's Byzantium. In the entire colonized new district, there is no wine better than Milstar's. Drive away the greenskin beasts, drink the grape wine. A shout erupted over the Vox channel. The sudden burst of cheers from the Valhallans thundered through the Vox channel. The greenskins setting up camp all dropped their crude tools, picked up their weapons, and looked toward the shrimp city. Roars echoed over the orc camp. More landers brought more greenskins, who gathered around ugly banners. Hundreds of crude symbols, each representing a tribe. Massive, ugly warships spat out bloated gargants. Chapter 762. 6 orc warlords, 6 blackstone fortresses. Could it be Tzeentch's doing? The largest port in the colonized new district, Abyss Port. Flamini, lord of the 6th battle group, stared with a solemn expression at the data stream scrolling across his data slate. 9,296,954, Susho Stellar Strait lost, Orc Tide partitioning the Ramirez-class Star Fort. Castleberg, 9,959,954, over 100,000 orcs have broken into the Cyclops Star Cluster. 9,979,954, approximately 100,000 orcs have reduced Clayton Villa to ruins. Flamini's brow furrowed slightly. The first digit of the imperial standard calendar quantified the accuracy of the time measurement. A 9 represented the most unreliable data, mostly applicable to regions that had not previously used the imperial calendar. The colonized new district had been Legion territory for over a century. It should have been using a level 3 measurement. Level 3 indicated that the source could maintain direct psychic contact with level 2 sources, but could not maintain direct psychic contact with the Sol system. Level 2 applied to regions in direct contact with Terra. Within the territory of the Order Shadows, Level 2 was represented by the Legion's homeworld, Vostonia, which conducted direct astropathic communication with Terra. Flamini glanced at the red notations. Astropathic communication throughout the entire colonized new district is suffering from unknown etheric fluctuations. All reports presented to you were received yesterday. The choir's estimation of the millenary time based on fragmented information is for reference only and cannot serve as the basis for military decisions. In other words, the reports they send to the Legion are also highly likely to be unable to arrive in a timely manner. Flamini's brow tightened. He did not immediately pray to the Black Emperor, but instead stood up and walked toward the crystal divination room. Flamini provided support in the form of immigrants and civilian military machinery to Santiago Borgkamp, lord of the 5th Battle Group, helping him develop his territory in the Sac-Trata Abyss. In return, the Legion's foremost psychic artisan had personally come to the Relic-class battleship, Lucky, to build this divination room for him. Flamini entered the divination room, drew a spiritual knife, and infused it with spirituality. He quickly tapped on the geometric patterns on the floor. As the etheric tides completely receded, the Euclidean sigil isolated the presence of the warp even more perfectly than the untouchables standing guard at the door. Flamini picked up a black crystal pendulum. It was not a natural crystal, but a divination tool manufactured by the Forge Lord. Flamini had prepared an entire uninhabited planet for Rosicky Czech to allow the Techmarines to conduct weapons testing. Flamini picked up parchment and a quill, swiftly writing a line in the Dun language. I did not foresee danger, someone is interfering. The winner held the even-numbered black gold chain in his left hand, bringing the black crystal pendant close to the paper and the stated event. He closed his eyes and entered a Thelema meditative state, chanting silently in his heart. I did not foresee danger, someone is interfering. Over and over, repeating it 11 times, he opened his eyes to look at the pendulum. The black crystal pendant was swaying slowly, driving the even-numbered black gold chain in a counterclockwise rotation. Clockwise represented affirmation, counterclockwise represented negation. No interference, just normal etheric tide fluctuations. While the winner pondered, he wrote a new event on another blank piece of parchment. Astropathic communication is being disturbed, is someone interfering? After waiting for the chain to come to a steady rest, he performed the divination again. The winner opened his eyes again, it was still counterclockwise. Flamini silently put away the pendulum and deactivated the Euclidean sigil. He then went to the altar to pray to the Black Emperor. A black mist swallowed Flamini. Upon arriving in the mysterious realm, he bowed to the Black Emperor. My lord, the orcs of the Grell Abyss have broken through the blockade. Of the 7 orc tides, one is striking toward Abyss Port, and another has entered the Cyclops star cluster. Nimrod sat high upon his throne. After hearing Flamini's report and his divination results, he couldn't help but feel suspicious. He thought of the abnormality when divining the Eye of the Night. That artifact could control the Blackstone Fortress, and a connection formed in his mind. Besides Abyss Port, 6 orc warlords are lunging toward 6 star systems in the Colonnade New District. The Colonnade New District, the future Gothic sector, has 6 Blackstone fortresses. Is it a coincidence? Nimrod could not be certain if his association was close to the truth. Although he knew the names of the systems where the 6 Blackstone fortresses were located, for instance, Blackstone 1 was in Vlaris, he did not know their exact coordinates, nor could he be sure if they were the targets of the orc raids. The only thing he could be sure of was that Blackstone 4 was within the Cyclops star cluster, which was the target of the largest orc force. Go immediately and fetch the black crystal pendant, then pray to me again. Nimrod then sent Flamini back to the real world. While waiting, he pondered the plan to deploy the Legion and extinguish the orc tide. A moment later, whispers sounded in his ear. He immediately extended his spirituality and pulled Flamini back into the nation of disorder. Divine. Flamini did not know why the Black Emperor wanted him to repeat the divination, but he immediately followed the divine decree. As the winner opened his eyes, his obsidian pupils suddenly dilated. The black crystal pendant hung motionless, swaying neither clockwise nor counterclockwise. Continue the divination. Nimrod watched scrutinizingly as Flamini's 2 subsequent divinations both resulted in the pendulum hanging still without a result. The nation of disorder did not involve divination and could not enhance a winner's divinatory abilities. When he had used the dice of prophecy before, he had also leveraged the nation of disorder to a certain extent to exclude interference from concealment and fate. It was the same now with the winner's divination. He was not being misled, yet he could not complete the divination. But a lack of result was, in a way, a result itself. He said in a deep voice, "Your divination is being interfered with." The winner realized this, and his body trembled. It was only because I am within my Lord's divine kingdom that I did not receive a false divination result. Had I followed a false result, I might have made the wrong decisions. Praise my Lord's great power. Nimrod thought for a moment. He did not have the winner continue divining who was interfering. The abnormality of the sequence 4-level dice of prophecy when divining the Eye of the Night previously indicated that this power far exceeded the scope of sequence 5 abilities. The interferer should be targeting the Blackstone fortresses. They were originally supposed to be obtained by Abaddon to blow up Cadia and tear open the galaxy to create the Great Rift. In other words, the Chaos side is the one most affected. To be able to discover the change in fate and have the ability to invisibly influence the orcs of the Grell Abyss, could it be the Weaver of Fate, Tzeentch, causing trouble behind the scenes? Thinking of this, Nimrod became even more determined to quickly extinguish the orc tide within the Colonnade New District. Although the Blackstone fortresses were within his territory and the artifacts to control them were in his hands and could not be moved out of thin air. Once the orc tide spread and they, who reproduce via spores, scattered to many worlds, they would be difficult to eradicate. It would be no small trouble. If I haven't guessed wrong, it is Tzeentch's doing. And to have actually sent 6 orc warlords to the systems where the Blackstone fortresses are located, the intention must be to use the orcs to slow my footsteps. Defend Abyss Port. After crushing the incoming orcs, wipe out the scattered orc fleets. The current Abyss Port did not have as many defensive facilities as the largest naval base of the Gothic sector built over thousands of years in his memory, but as the largest port of Nimrod's largest territory, the Colonnade New District, it had a defensive perimeter constructed of 5 Ramirez-class star forts. Its defenses were only lower than those of Vostonia, the Order Shadows, navigation hub Carium Gate, and the Legion's largest naval base, Sepra Mundi. A single asteroid fortress posed no threat, even 9 would be destroyed. Even an orc battle moon or a Randan artificial satellite would pose no threat to Abyss Port. Nimrod then extended his spirituality further, touching the light orbs of the lords of the 1st, 2nd, 5th, 7th, and 10th Battle Groups, deploying them to the colonized new district to extinguish the 5 orc tides. He would personally go to the Cyclops star cluster to sweep away the largest of the orc tides. Chapter 763, Blood Stains the Eyes of the Alicia People. 955. M30. The Order Shadows, 1st Battle Group, following the orders of the Primarch, successfully intercepted the largest orc asteroid fortress in the Sauron system. On the bridge of the Alicia Guardian, the century-old Toby Bandak had graying temples. He led 41 regiments, following arbitrator Lord Howard Fend across the Sea of Stars to the Coronis Expanse to annihilate the invading orcs. This was not Toby's first time in the Coronis Expanse. Nearly a century ago during the Randan War, he had led the 1st through 5th regiments beyond the reach of the Astronomicon to seize the fortress that Lord Nimrod later named Fortress Excalibur. Standing tall, he stared at the holographic images. 14 regiments had already taken the lead in landing on the asteroid fortress. The Alicia people's ability to rapidly deploy onto the battlefield was as excellent as that of the Order Shadows. Toby examined the threat vectors across the battlefield and immediately identified that the situation in Sector 13 was the most dire. One airborne regiment had already suffered a casualty rate as high as 58.36% before even reaching the ground. Toby raised his mechanical right arm. His hand had been withered by the entropy energy of the Harud, forcing him to replace it with a prosthetic. Although he possessed a mechanical arm, his atrophied nerves could not recover. His reaction speed had decreased significantly, forcing him to withdraw from the front lines of combat. Toby pressed his index finger firmly onto the hologram, marking it. He pressed his throat communicator and issued orders over the Vox channel. Bombard Sector 13, 4 volleys. All standby regiments, full airborne assault. Death from above. A coordinated response echoed through the communication channel. Regimental commander, by your command. The black Alicia ships, painted with the yellow sun and verdant plant symbols, passed through the burning, rusted wreckage and approached the anchor points marked by runes. Toby's expression was solemn as he stared at the holograms. Hellish and dangerous plasma beams swept across, obstructing the fleet's approach. The skewed plasma jets sprayed out like water from a hose being scattered by a gale. Toby picked up a datapad, his finger tapping the yellow area categorized as important information, finding the specific entry to verify. The Orcs, Asteroid Fortress No. 4 has invaded the northern sector of the Ramirez-class star fort Castleberg, which guards the Susho Stellar Strait. The weapon arrays equipped in the northern sector of Castleberg are of the plasma type. Toby's face darkened as he stared at the crooked jets. They lacked the beautiful, orderly arcs of human plasma naval cannons, but they were still lethal. The threat vectors continued to climb, with countless strands of red static light. He said to the adjutant beside him, "I will lead the drop." 2. The adjutant saw his superior raise a hand, and the words of dissuasion were stuck in his throat. He raised his hand in a salute. "Your participation will be like a firework ignited in the heart of every Alicia." Death from above. The engines of the Valkyrie gunships roared as they swarmed off the flight deck. Inside a Taurus command vehicle, Toby Bandak's black military greatcoat was trimmed with luxurious gold, his cuffs embroidered with gold thread, and his tough, scarred jawline was clean-shaven. He stood with arms folded, staring at the skewed hellish arcs of light. Rolling strings of red runes stung his slightly clouded eyes. Whoosh! A green eerie light shone into the driver's seat, and the young noble adjutant in the driver's seat spat. Filthy greenskins, their evil glow masks the white-green plasma energy and the flashing electrical sparks. "Mosinio, greenskins will always use our things in ways we cannot understand," Toby said earnestly to his grandnephew. "You will get used to it." He looked out toward the open hatch with a deep gaze. Alicia is located at the confluence of trade routes. One day, you will face the green tide. The vehicle shook violently, causing a slight tremor in Toby's voice. Bang! The grav chutes opened, and the vibration immediately subsided a bit. Mosinio raised both hands and gripped the steering wheel tightly. "Lord, I will, seriously, learn from you." He stared straight ahead as an evil beam passed from the lower corner of his left eye to the upper corner of his right eye. Over 100 Alicia airborne were incinerated to ash, leaving only an ominous circle of bursting light. Mosinio gripped the steering wheel tightly, the veins on the back of his hands bulging. Toby raised his mechanical arm and heavily struck the back of the young man's hand. Don't be nervous, today we aren't that unlucky. Lord, I'm not nervous. Boom. The Taurus slammed onto the pitted, sunken ground and bounced up. Toby withdrew his arm and shouted loudly into the Vox channel, "Attack! Death from above!" Countless blue lights flashed as the Alicia people raised their lasguns, aimed at the greenskins, and opened fire. The heavy weapons specialists turned their heavy flamers, and dragons of fire swept across. Greenskins roared and hissed, struggling forward through the sea of fire. The molten flow of promethium burned fiercely, black smoke rising, and the smell of burnt fungus soup wafted into Toby's respirator, seeping through the filters. Cough, cough. Toby released his throat communicator to prevent the noise from affecting his subordinates. Crackle. Amidst a loud bang, the flow of flames suddenly stopped. Toby looked back and saw the flamer operator had been blown into a pulp. 4 o'clock. He roared at Mosinio, leaping onto the roof of the vehicle. The drifting electrical sparks made his flesh stiffen, but his mechanical arms gripped the handles with force. Clang! The Taurus spun, and the front wheel on the rear left side struck a protruding jagged edge. PFF'd. With a popping sound, the wheel failed. Cold sweat drenched Mosinio's back as his right hand stiffly reduced the force applied, balancing the lost power. The commanders of the Alicia Airborne chose the Taurus not only for its lightness but also for another important reason. Even if it lost one or more wheels, the controls could still be adjusted to keep driving. Bang! The Taurus leapt, and Mosinio breathed a small sigh of relief. His pupils suddenly dilated. Dozens of orcs holding wrenches were gathered around a massive cannon, jumping and screeching. Around them, hundreds of fully armed orc warriors clad in rusted iron plates turned their dull gray gun barrels. The pneumatic devices on their backs hissed, and their guns rattled with a da-da-da sound. Mosinio jerked the steering wheel. Screech. Amidst the ear-piercing sound of friction, Toby steadily pulled the trigger. The fire dragons swayed left and right but remained focused on the greenskins. A foul smell of ammonia filled the air, and the angry roars gradually died down. Mosinio's eyes widened. Amidst the streaks of fire, the orcs were wiped out, and not a single stream of flame had touched the crackling, evil machinery. Death from above. The Alicia Airborne shouted loudly, following their regimental commander as they attacked the greenskins like an overwhelming tide. Dense beams of light accurately struck every single greenskin. Not a single shot was wasted. The Alicia Airborne, who dropped into strategically critical nodes, often had to fight for long periods without supplies. Marksmanship was a key focus of their training, just as important as operating a grav chute for a drop. Toby looked heroic, the regimental banner snapping in the wind. The khaki-colored wave crushed the green tide. The Alicia people captured the plasma cannon battery. Jump! Toby's angry shout suddenly rang in Mosinio's ears, and he instinctively rolled out of the vehicle. Boom! Black smoke howled as a shell slammed into the Taurus assault vehicle. Mosinio continued to roll and spin, feeling a pain as if his bones were being shaken apart. He scrambled to his feet and stared wide-eyed at a beast that was at least 3 heads taller than any orc he had ever seen. The beast wore crudely polished full-body armor, with even its head encased in rusted iron. It grinned and charged, a large cannon on its back emitting wisps of black smoke. Beside it, a massive iron saw buzzed loudly. Whoosh! A beam of light as bright as a star shot toward the beast. Mosinio's eyes lit up. He knew that was a reward given to Toby by the Arbitrator Lord for his contributions in the Battle of Fortress Excalibur. The beast was surely dead. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Amidst the rising smoke, the beast did not fall. How was that possible? Mosinio's eyes widened as he saw with shock that the beast's mangled body was stuffed with layers of rusted iron, and molten cables were flickering with blinding sparks. It had undergone primitive bionic augmentation. PFF'd. The color of blood stained his vision. It stained the eyes of every Alicia Airborne. They had lost their beloved commander. Chapter 764. I shall collect his war banner, remembering the years we fought side by side. The Alicia people roared in unison, firing beams of vengeance at the orc warlord. Crackle. Wog. The beast let out a massive roar, its shout drowning out the dense explosive sounds. His body shuddered, and amidst a flash of eerie green light, a pitch-black shell flew out, smashing into the Taurus of the 25th Regiment's commander. Bang! The vehicle was blown into a cloud of black smoke. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Wog! The green tide surged forward as armor-clad orcs charged with roars, their guns and cannons firing haphazardly. The Alicia people did not retreat a single step, every one of their shots accurately struck the enemy. The orc warlord roared as he charged into the densest part of the enemy formation, his twin saws buzzing and spinning as a mist of blood rose into the sky. The terrifying orc warlord slaughtered wantonly, and the Alicia people died in swaths. Mosinio pulled out his Necromunda pattern laspistol and fired angrily at the beast. Puff, puff, puff. The beams hit the crude armor, leaving only small scorched spots. Roar. Mosinio felt a chill run through his body as the beast's crimson gaze fixed firmly on him. It charged toward him with great strides. Mosinio fired while retreating, but the distance closed relentlessly. A flicker of despair rose in Mosinio's eyes. A piercing red light reflected in his eyes. Boom! The ground shook violently. The screeching, incoming iron saw came to a sudden halt. Mosinio saw that the beast's eyes, the only visible organic parts of its body, were bulging as if they were about to burst. Foul, purulent blood dripped down. The orc warlord turned angrily to face the black-armored shrimp. Senior, interrogator, Howard Fend, having used psychic pierce to save the Alicia man, felt a thick stench of evil. He checked his tactical interface, and his obsidian eyes suddenly narrowed. Toby Bandak, the regimental commander of the Alicia Airborne, had fallen in battle. A flame of fury rose in the eyes of the disciplinary knight, and he raised his arm. Target for punishment, orc warlord. The disciplinary knight's black armor suddenly glowed with a dawn-like radiance, and even the power fist, which had activated its decomposition field, shimmered with a pure luster. The Saturn pattern Terminator prototype on the disciplinary knight suddenly felt weightless as he stepped forward, arriving in front of the orc warlord. Boom! The shining light smashed the blood-stained iron saw to pieces. The orc warlord's massive body, which stood a head taller than the armored Howard, swayed as he was knocked back several steps, staggering. His left arm hung limply, and his crimson eyes glared at the black-armored shrimp. Wog! Green mist rose as he swung his right arm, the iron saw screeching. Death! The disciplinary knight crouched and lunged, suddenly leaping up as his light-wrapped blue fist trailed afterimages, smashing into the orc warlord's head. Bang! The orc warlord's head and neck exploded. Amidst the drifting metal shards, Howard said in a low voice, "Beast, this is your punishment." Mosinio looked up at the towering figure of the arbitrator lord, who had just blown the beast's head apart with a single punch. "Old Toby, the Lord has avenged you." He suddenly thought of something and ran at full speed toward the wreckage of the Taurus to search through it. Howard ordered his honor guard to hunt down the orcs who were scattering after the warlord's death, then walked over to the wreckage of the Taurus. He removed his helmet and gauntlet, carefully taking a fragment of a shard from the hands of the Alicia man who was dazed, holding a tattered war banner. "I will keep it, to remember the years Toby and I fought side by side." Clayton Villa. Dazzling beams of light fell, and rolling heatwaves scorched the mountain rocks into charred streaks. Multiple sonic booms echoed throughout the world, and the greenskins covered their ears tightly amidst the deafening roar. Mountain peaks crumbled into mushroom clouds, and rubble filled the ravines. In orbit, on the bridge of the Relic-class battleship Void Hunter, Lord Sanchez of the 7th Battle Group, his cloak of the Great Death Wolf Murkai fluttering, wore the tooth of the Kraken at his waist. His obsidian eyes looked through his Russ Wolf helmet, watching the dense, scattered green dots on the holographic display. Relying on the range advantage of 4 Relic-class battleships, his battle group had already blasted the asteroid fortress, along with the orc warlord, into dust. But his mission was far from over. Clayton Villa had fallen, and the greenskins were scattered across the entire planet. Sanchez remembered that the Black Emperor's order was to extinguish the orc tide as quickly as possible. His eyes were fixed on the video screen as his adjutant, who managed the mimic chamber, calculated the time. Clayton Villa is classified as a mining world, rich in high-density precious metals. Orbital bombardment is proving ineffective. It is estimated to take 51 standard days. Orbital bombardment will have an irreversible impact on the ore layers, and 86.39% of the mining areas will be destroyed. Sanchez frowned. Such a result would destroy the planet's value, which was almost equivalent to an exterminatus destroying the world. The conspirer stared at the scrolling auger matrix report, his obsidian eyes suddenly lighting up. He saw blue runic markers appearing one by one. Death Skull Clan. The conspirer whispered. He had participated in the Flame Wheel campaign and had won a competition against the former Legion Master of the 6th Legion, Inik Laheven. He knew the orcs' situation like the back of his hand. The Death Skull Clan was famous for being scavengers and looters. Not only would they frantically scavenge everything within reach from corpses on the battlefield, but if given the chance, they wouldn't mind stealing from other careless greenskins as well. As the conspirer's thoughts raced, he quickly formulated a plot. 7 days later, black transport ships and tugs arrived in the designated orbit of Clayton Villa. The massive black void ships opened their whale-like bellies. Metal debris rained down from the sky. Steel cables slid down from the tugs, dropping large chunks of wreckage from scrap ships and black warships. Debris of various sizes pierced the atmosphere, creating streaks of light as they underwent intense friction. The Iron Skull orcs looking up at the sky roared in excitement, cheering as they swarmed toward the falling treasures. Inside the black ships, the pyromaniacs watched the video screens, seeing the footage sent back by sensors mounted on the large pieces of wreckage. Once blue covered the screens, they pressed the activation buttons almost simultaneously. The melta bombs placed by the pyromaniacs themselves detonated. Bang, bang, bang. The destructive flows of molten heat detonated the suspended, sealed promethium flasks one by one. Streaks of fire shot into the sky, piercing the dark canopy. Greenskins roared as they struggled in the sea of fire. The entire world was filled with a mixture of foul odors, hot iron and fire, promethium and sweat, as well as concentrated ammonia and a strange, rotten charred smell. In orbit, over 1,000 pyromaniacs lost their sensor views. They walked quickly to the observation windows, looking down at the streaks of flame. They felt their spirituality become more active, and their bodies and souls became purer. Within an hour, 1,000 true pyromaniacs were born. On the Destiny, Flamini held a data slate, staring at the report submitted by the master of the astropathic choir. 7,978,954. The 5th Battle Group utilized the Carium Gate to quickly reach the Portsmouth system and intercept the orcs before they could land. 6,317,955. Arbitrator Lord Howard Fend cleared and captured the largest asteroid fortress. 4,632,955. The 7th Battle Group ignited a massive fire on Clayton Villa, incinerating the greenskins scattered across the planet into ashes. Flamini had known from the information bestowed by the Black Emperor even earlier that the 5 orc tides invading the territory had all been extinguished. In addition, he had effortlessly relied on 5 Ramirez-class star forts to crush the orc warlord harassing Abyss Port. Now only the tide that had invaded the Cyclops star cluster remained. As astropathic communication gradually recovered and intelligence became more complete, he could confirm that the number of orcs in the Cyclops star cluster exceeded 150,000. The honor guard led by the Black Emperor and the Vostonia Auxiliary Army were to wipe out the largest orc tide. Chapter 765. That flag looks durable, it's mine now. Within the Cyclops star cluster, the ruined city of Milstar reeked of a foul stench, having been turned into a livestock pen. Chaplain Jeremy's black armor was covered in filthy blood and scars. Except for the shadow-like Legion emblem on his chest, which had been meticulously cared for and remained clean, the rest of the armor was covered in thick green grime. As the commander, he had not removed his armor for a full cleaning by armor servitors for 347 standard days. 13 days ago, the city wall sector had fallen completely. After that, he even had to replace the batteries in his power pack while at the front lines. The foul odor had blanketed this industrial city, thick with ammonia. It was so pungent that the last batch of Ovega rations produced smelled of strange rot the moment they were opened, making it impossible to tell if they had just been contaminated by fungi. Boom! Jeremy followed the loud noise and saw a behemoth 4 heads taller than any orc he had ever seen. On the boss pole behind its back were strung 10 trophies, the heads of Order Shadows. 6 were still wearing helmets, their eyes bulging out of the lenses. 4 heads were caved in, with cheekbones jutting out. The beast had crashed into a breach in the wall wide enough for 3 orcs to pass through side by side, but it was stuck inside. Its eyes were vastly different, one was crimson, the other deep green. Enormous bronze tusks were welded onto its jagged metal jaw. Its body was like a metal barrel, and its metallic arms reminded Jeremy of the first campaign he had ever participated in. The Basmimanic people who invaded the colonized New District during the Second Randan War. Powerful metal beasts. The beast's arms swept across, making the wall shudder violently as bits of plasticrete showered down. The Order's shadows seized the opportunity, raising their bedrock pattern bolters and aiming at the beast. Adamantite warheads hammered against the metal shell of the orc warlord Jirgil, producing muffled explosions. Mass reactive bolts struck its throat directly, blossoming into a plume of fire. The beast let out a roar, its left arm brutally smashing through the wall as 6 bolters were lashed together in a trumpet shape. The machine's spirit roared stubbornly as it began to rotate sluggishly. Boom boom boom. The beast's body swayed continuously, grinding against the walls on both sides and kicking up a series of sparks. 2 Order shadows died, pulverized into a gelatinous mass by the savage weapon. The apothecary took one look and immediately abandoned the idea of recovering their gene seed. On the chaplain's tactical network, only 29 black runes of the Order shadows remained. He had deployed half of the Order shadows in the main city. By his most optimistic estimate, no more than 10 battle brothers would still be fighting in the other industrial complexes that had lost contact. The chaplain pressed the activation rune, and the energy field flickered with static. He opened the Vox channel, his voice booming. Brothers, the greenskins dare to defile our city, to set foot upon the sacred land we built, the sacred land we guard. They have disrupted our order, and the Primarch will not tolerate such a crime. The last of the energy field's power was fully drained, and the light stabilized. The bard sang out loudly, "Brothers, move out. Xeno's bastards, come, die in blood and fire. For the Order shadows. For the Gene Father." Jeremy leapt out first, his Archaeotech pistol spitting out the last stream of melt flow harvested from the planetary radiation layer. A light as brilliant as a star soared upward. The beast's shoulder exploded, sending metal mixed with congealed green flesh flying. The orc warlord Virgil's red and green eyes, like those of 2 different people, landed crookedly on the black armored shrimp. The roar of Gork and Mork drove the piston motor of his right arm to hum and rotate. A massive mechanical claw smashed through the wall, reaching for the black armored shrimp's head. Jeremy ducked to avoid it, swinging his scepter of truth violently to strike the beast's bloated belly. Bang! The scepter felt as if it had struck an adamantium pillar, and Jeremy's right arm immediately went numb. Bang bang bang! Black smoke billowed from Jirgil's exhaust pipes. The pincer claw clamped onto Jeremy's shoulder, lifting the Order shadow up like a crab catching a small fish. As the black armor began to crack, the other Order shadows followed close behind, their bolters roaring as they hammered the orc warlord's iron body. Boom boom boom. In Jeremy's yellow warning runes, a series of red ones flared up. He forced his right arm to move, swinging it toward the helmet. His out-of-control arm slammed into the boss pole. The power field hissed as it tore the pole apart, and the 10 Order shadow heads slid down with the broken half. Bang! The boss pole crashed down, and the nearby greenskins immediately let out cries of shock. Was their war boss, the powerful orc warlord Virgil, dead? The Valhalla people immediately seized the chance, rushing out from cover and firing in disciplined ranks. A tide of laser beams swept over the greenskins, driving them out of the city in an instant. Virgil's green eye glanced behind him, and he let out a loud roar, "I ain't dead. Charge for me. Anyone who runs, I'll pop their head." Wog! Virgil's red eye glowed crimson, and the Gargant's exhaust pipes roared and shuddered as black smoke rose. The pincer claw suddenly tightened, and the Mark III power armor deformed and twisted under the pressure. The warning icons cut off abruptly as the armor shattered with a bang. The pincer claw tore the head away along with the shoulders and neck. The scepter fell limply. Snowflakes began to drift. Milstar welcomed its first snow of the year 955. Jeremy's corpse collapsed, and the blood spraying from his neck was a deep crimson, gushing out like a fountain. The hot blood was like a water gun, pushing through the drifting snowflakes and splashing onto the scepter. The staff was dyed bright red. Virgil held his trophy high and roared loudly. Wog! Wog! The orc tide roared in response, rushing into the city like a flood. They scrambled over each other to be first. The Gretchen and the Killikons were especially frenzied, howling as they crushed everything in their path into mush. Shrimp and orcs alike. The Valhalla people in the front rank raised their rifles and fired in unison. The second, third, fourth, and fifth ranks sought cover behind collapsed walls, providing screening for the rear to retreat back into the bunkers. Snowflakes fell, covering the bodies of the Order shadows, but the Valhalla people would continue to resist the green tide. Their memories were awakened. Long winters spent in endless, bloody battle against the greenskins. Virgil turned, smashing through a wall, and looked at his boss pole with annoyance. He raised a massive iron foot and kicked a tech boy over. Bang! Gore stained the earth red. Bang! The head slammed onto the ground. Stick it on. The tech boys hurriedly stuck the head onto the pole, and amidst the sounds of hammering, they attached the other segment. They climbed the wall and planted the boss pole onto the gargant, which was leaning against the ruined city wall. Virgil shook the boss pole, now bearing 11 Order shadow heads, gave a grunt, and slowly turned around. Suddenly, 2 points of light, one bright and one dim, were reflected in his eyes. His crimson left eye fixed on a black armored figure with golden wings on its back. Iron skin, you're mine. His green right eye looked toward a smaller figure holding a war banner, shimmering with the light of dawn. That flag looks durable, it's mine now. Virgil smashed through the wall, his massive iron feet stomping on the ground as he charged toward the points of light. 3 kilocons noisily spun their circular saws, hacking at the buildings. Amidst flying sparks, entire houses were sawn into several pieces. In the midst of the humming, 2 Valhalla people were unfortunately torn into a mist of blood. The 6 survivors rolled away to dodge. Boom! With a loud crash, the light of dawn suddenly surged up. The Valhalla people looked in shock at the center of the light, where a black armored giant knelt on his left knee, plunging a broad, straight greatsword into the ground before him. Amidst ear-piercing screeches, a terrifying circular saw hissed as it attacked, a massive iron pincer came whistling down, and a long-barreled big gun roared. The dawn light shone brightly, forming an invisible wall around the black armored giant. The destructive attacks slammed into the invisible wall, producing a harsh clashing sound. Amidst the impact, the giant remained motionless, like a statue. An Order shadow. The Valhalla people recognized his identity from the giant's paint scheme, but they still found it hard to believe. They had never seen anyone this powerful, even among the Order shadows. Could he be Lord Nimrod? No, he didn't have golden wings. Virgil suddenly stood up. As a guardian, wearing a Saturn pattern Terminator prototype, he was only slightly shorter than a kilocon. He kicked the kilocon on the left away, and the psionic greatsword forged by the sword master Kase glowed with light as it cleaved into the top of the kilocon on the right. Bang! The kilocon screeched and exploded, its cobbled-together parts scattering. As the guardian attacked, his defense lowered accordingly. A circular saw hissed and pressed against the invisible wall, making a piercing tearing sound. Bang! An iron pincer smashed through the dawn wall formed by guardian. Virgil spun his blade, and the sword hissed as it pierced into the iron can in front of him. He exerted force with his right arm, trying to pull the blade out. Amidst the humming of the blade, it clashed against the piston engine. With a bang, the kilocon that had been kicked over wobbled to its feet and swung its circular saw toward the Legion's war banner. Virgil let out an angry roar. When he had received the war banner from the Black Emperor's hand, he had sworn an oath. He would protect the Legion's war banner with his life, the sacred flag branded with the name, Nimrod. The Guardian released the psionic blade, and the glowing Sword of Dawn appeared out of thin air in his right hand. He knelt on one knee and shouted loudly, "Guardian!" The dawn wall suddenly solidified, tearing at the teeth of the circular saw. The Sword of Dawn abruptly disintegrated, and shards of light soared upward. Under the control of the veteran Dawn Paladin, not a single flickering, violent blade of light flew toward the Valhalla people behind him. The Valhalla people watched in a daze as the dawn storm tore apart the kilocon swinging the circular saw. The light blades ripped through the toppled kilocon that had a greatsword stuck in its chest. The screaming, falling Gretchen were torn into a pile of scraps. Virgil stood up and pulled out the psionic blade. The Order Shadow standard bearer held the banner high. Attack. Chapter 766 Nimrod. Orc, I declare you guilty. Nimrod beat his wings and dove down. His gaze swept across the broken city walls. A howling choppa, a slashed fur coat. Black armor plates scattered beside corpses trampled into pulp. 11 heads of Order shadows impaled upon the boss's banner. A flame of fury rose in his obsidian eyes. The spirituality of the Mentor of Disorder surged forth, locking onto the greenskin wearing the gargant. Strands of golden rule threads wrapped around the Orc warlord in layers. Virgil's red and green eyes shifted, as if sensing something. The Mentor of Disorder spoke in a deep voice, declaring in Dun language. Greenskin, you are guilty. The invisible golden threads tightened. You led Xenos to invade the human world. Bang! The golden threads constricted tightly, binding the green body like steel wires. Virgil felt a sharp pain in his left leg, his body stumbled, nearly kneeling. His skin stung, and pus seeped out. He looked up into the sky, where the black-armored, golden-winged shrimp was saying words he couldn't understand. Whether the target of punishment understood the word of order was irrelevant, the key factors were the degree to which the target violated order and the crimes committed. Shrimp. Die. Virgil raised his right arm, pointing the bell-mouthed barrel at the black-armored, golden-winged shrimp. The Mentor of Disorders gaze swept over the wicked weapon cobbled together from 6 bolters, neither dodging nor flinching. You slaughtered humans. Boom. Virgil's right arm felt a sharp pain as if being sliced into 10,000 pieces, and the bell-mouthed weapon crashed down. You desecrated the corpses of the Order shadows, taking them as trophies. Bang. Virgil's head exploded. Brain matter mixed with pus splashed everywhere. The Orc warlord was directly obliterated by the word of order for the crimes he had committed. Nimrod flew down and grabbed the tilting boss's banner. Rumble. The corpse collapsed. Light and shadow flashed in the Primarch's eyes as telekinetic force swept out, hurling the Orc warlord's body into the green tide. Boom. The massive body encased in the gargant swept through, crushing dozens of greenskins into pulp. Whoosh. With the Orc warlord dead, the greenskins scattered. Some swung their choppas, decapitating the greenskins around them. Others fled howling, knocking over greenskins who were firing their shootas. The Valhallans looked toward the magnificent black-armored, golden-winged giant. With a casual wave of his hand, the evil and terrifying orcs were swept away in swaths. Lord Nimrod. A demigod walking the mortal world. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Blinding light pierced through the snow-filled sky and crashed onto the ground. Through the collapsed city walls, the Valhallans saw black-armored giants leaping out, firing a roaring barrage of shells at the greenskins. They saw another giant holding a banner high, striding toward the retreating green tide. Order shadows gathered around him. The colonel of the 15th Infantry Regiment was the first to react, shouting loudly, "Attack!" Flames of vengeance flickered in the eyes of the Valhallans as they quickly found their squads, platoons, and companies, forming neat lines to launch a pursuit. Nimrod strode across the land mixed with snow, water, pus, and blood, following the spiritual light to find a shepherd's staff. The black staff was stained red with blood. The Primarch's gaze pierced through the blood, seeing that the material of the staff had changed, becoming a crimson crystal. Within the Mentor of Disorders, Ling vision, the staff also glowed crimson. He silently leaned over, reached out his right hand, and picked up the crimson crystal shepherd's staff. The crimson staff was not sticky to the touch, it felt warm, and the faint sound of singing emanated from it. The bard, Leander characteristic has precipitated and fused into the staff. It is now a mystical item. Of course, it is also a relic weapon. Nimrod silently tucked the scepter into his waist and looked toward the honor guard direction. The Primarch instantly found the key subject of his observation, Sasebo Tezuka. A major reason Nimrod was paying attention to Sasebo Tezuka was that Ramsey, the lord of the 10th Battle Group, had recommended him for the honor guard. The honor guard of a battle group lord were all members of the royal court, so such a recommendation was extremely rare. After inquiring, Nimrod learned that Sasebo Tezuka had proactively proposed joining Ramsey's honor guard upon returning to the warband. He knew, and was willing, to have his soul follow the chapter master into battle after death. This meant he was willing to be grazed by the shepherd. Another reason Nimrod focused on Sasebo Tezuka was that in his memory, during the second founding, he had founded and become the first chapter master of the penitents warband. His talent was the most outstanding among the former Faceless Ones. He had only given up on becoming a member of Nimrod's own honor guard because his battle brothers had consumed Xenos corpses. Nimrod's obsidian eyes focused on Sasebo Tezuka, who was moving swiftly, one of the three who could keep up with Jirgil's long strides. As he ran, the bedrock pattern bolter in his hand fired continuously, accurately blowing apart the heads of greenskins one by one. Nimrod nodded in satisfaction and withdrew his gaze. On the fourth day of the blizzard, the Order Shadows and the Valhallans cleared the orc camps around the main city. During a brief respite, Nimrod summoned Sasebo Tezuka. Sasebo Tezuka took a deep breath before pushing open the door. Carrying his helmet under his arm, he walked past the unsettling Itzek. Sasebo's gaze swept over the black wolf and the orange-furred big cat lying at his father's feet. Father. His calm and composed face couldn't help but show a look of excitement. He had never imagined his father would summon him alone. He knew what this meant. An opportunity to join the inner court. Becoming a member of the honor guard was already enough to be proud of. He hadn't expected to be valued by his father and selected for the inner court. Your reward, Nimrod said with a smile, opening his palm to reveal the corpse collector potion. Drink it. When choosing a potion for Sasebo Tezuka, he naturally had to pick one outside the hanged man pathway. Grazing, beyonders outside of one's own pathway, combined with different abilities, was the only way to maximize the shepherd's combat power. Nimrod did not want Sasebo Tezuka to fall in battle. His outstanding abilities would make him a great asset to Ramsey. The cooperation between the two would be a union of the strong. Based on the death culture of the penitents, and Sasebo Tezuka's indifferent attitude toward death, Nimrod chose the death pathway for him. Sasebo Tezuka tried his best to remain calm as he took the blackish potion from his father's hand. Thank you for your gift. He opened the cap, and a stench more foul and rotten than a pile of greenskin corpses wafted toward him. Sasebo Tezuka tilted his head back and drank it, his throat bobbing as he swallowed the foul, nauseating potion. A moment later, the newly promoted corpse collector clearly felt his body temperature drop by more than a dozen degrees. The light from the lumen lamp above made him feel a bit uncomfortable. Sasebo Tezuka resisted the urge to immediately put on his helmet and knelt on one knee. Father, I will surely make good use of the power you have bestowed upon me. I will fight to the death for you and for the Legion. Hearing Sasebo Tezuka use the standard Vostonian word for death, Nimrod completely abandoned the idea of turning him into an Eternals. It's up to you now. If you become an undying. Sequence 4 of the death pathway, undying, not only grants a long lifespan but also causes a qualitative change in the physical body. Injuries are no longer fatal unless the body is completely destroyed. Chapter 767, His Promise, I Fulfill for Him. 956. M30. Orbit of Milstar, the Primarch's office aboard the Wenquan Shadow. Arsena Dun held a data slate and reported to the Black Emperor. My lord, I have summarized the losses from the Legion's suppression of the Orc Tide. The Legion suffered a total of 9,413 deaths, with the highest number coming from the 6th Battle Group, where 4,925 fell while resisting the Orc invasion. The chroniclers analyzed the reasons why the Legion's casualties were higher than during the Flame Wheel, based on the records of the scribes. Although Nimrod only mobilized the main forces of 5 battle groups to support the 6th Battle Group, the total force involved exceeded 150,000, which was far higher than during the Flame Wheel incident. The strength of the Legion was also much higher than it was back then. At that time, the number of Beyonders was small, and most chapter masters were Sequence 8, with very few even reaching that level. Now, the chapter masters are at least Sequence 6, and the Royal Court members of Sequence 8 have become the backbone of each squad. The Order Shadows of the 6th Battle Group who died were scattered across various worlds to resist the Orc invasion. Although the mobilization of the Auxiliary Army and Defense Army significantly depleted the enemy's effective strength, losses were inevitable due to the dispersion of forces. Nimrod nodded slightly. During the Flame Wheel, his legion had joined forces with the 2nd and 6th Legions to sweep through the Greenskin worlds. At that time, the forces were concentrated. The colonized new district covered a vast territory, and the Order Shadows forces were dispersed, while the main Greenskin force was under the control of the Orc warlord and was relatively concentrated. Especially in the early stages of the war, it was highly likely that Tzeentch was causing trouble. interfering with astropathic communication and the danger premonitions of the 6th Battle Group's Wheel of Fortune pathway beyonders, leaving many worlds and space battles unprepared. If I hadn't been able to receive Flamini's prayer and discovered the anomaly in the astropathic communication, the 6th Battle Group might have suffered a heavy blow, with even more severe losses. The worst-case scenario would have been spores spreading across all worlds, becoming a major threat to the entire new district in the future. Well, this is also something that can be exploited. The interference with astropathic communication means information is chaotic, making it harder for the War Council to grasp the actual situation. Nimrod seized the exploitable elements within the unfavorable situation and instructed the Primarch attendant. Report 25,600 deaths to the War Council. As you will. Arsena, whose hair was as white as snow, recorded the command and continued the report. Of the auxiliary army soldiers who participated, 149,100 died. Among them, 36,400 of the Elysian drop troops fell. The Valhallan Ice Warriors suffered the most severe losses. Out of the 36 regiments on Milstar, totaling 90,000 men, 74,500 were killed. A flicker of respect passed through Arsena's narrow eyes. As the main force, they held back the largest part of the Orc tide, which numbered over 160,000. After the war, it was finally confirmed that the Orcs attacking the Cyclops star cluster numbered over 200,000. Most of them were driven by the Orc warlord to land on Milstar and launch an attack. The immense sacrifice of the Valhallans stalled the Orcs' progress, preventing the spores from spreading widely to the many worlds of the Cyclops star cluster. I have reviewed the battle logs of Priest Jeremy, who commanded the defensive battle. As Nimrod spoke, he recalled that staff which looked like crimson crystal and the memories of when he had trained him to become a bard. He had a booming voice, and his singing was very penetrating. He promised the participating Valhallans an unlimited supply of Ovega meat cans, a fruit salad with every meal, and 42-year vintage wine from the cellars. He has sacrificed himself, but I will fulfill his promise for him. For the next 40 years, we will provide the Valhallans with an unlimited supply of Ovega and fruit salad with every meal. After rewarding every Valhallan, Nimrod gave further instructions to reward the soldiers who had participated in the battle. Open the wine cellars and distribute all the fine wine that has not yet been delivered to the soldiers who fought. For those who fell, distribute it to their relatives. The Primarch attendant recorded each instruction. As you will. After a moment of thought, Nimrod issued an order. The fleet shall set sail and return to Vostonia. The pursuit of the Orcs by the Order Shadows had not uncovered the Rebo system or Blackstone IV. Clearly, either Tzeentch was unable to weave the fate of the Orc warlord as he pleased due to the influence of the barrier. After all, Gork and Mork were no pushovers. Or he had intentionally refrained from weaving it, or even deliberately kept the Orc tide at a certain distance from the sector where the Blackstone fortress was located to prevent Nimrod from discovering it by chance. Given the current situation, Nimrod decided to temporarily leave the colonized new district, hoping to mislead Tzeentch into thinking he could not find the Blackstone fortress. After the snow-haired Arsena left the office, Nimrod returned to his room. After activating the Euclidean sigil, he stepped out and arrived at the 3rd level of the Nation of Disorder. Nimrod picked up the dice of prophecy and examined the triangular pyramid in his hand. The crystal contained an inner spiritual light. It didn't look like the dim light it had right after divining the Eye of the Night, but it hadn't fully recovered yet. 7 years have passed since the last divination, and the cooldown still isn't complete. It can now be confirmed that it's because the divination involved a uniqueness, and Tzeentch interfered with fate. The fact that the dice of prophecy had not yet cooled down was another major reason for his decision to temporarily leave the colonized new district. Nimrod waited another 2 years before the dice of prophecy fully regained its luster and could be used for divination again. He picked up the triangular pyramid and went to the 2nd level of space without any hesitation. He had already performed 2 divinations for Blackstone IV and paid a heavy price. There was no reason to back down. Nimrod's spirituality gushed out, and amidst the churning black mist, a pitch-black altar rose out of thin air. Disordered black arcs surrounded it. Spikes rose, and a pitch-black crown emerged. Enormous wings shielded the altar. Information about the Rebo system flashed rapidly through Nimrod's mind. Cyclops star cluster, Rebo system. There is a Blackstone fortress within the system. The Blackstone Fortress, known by the Eldar as the Talismans of Vol, is a powerful star fort created to deal with the star god shards controlled by the Necrons. All of his knowledge regarding the Rebo system came from the Blackstone Fortress. After the data on the Rebo system flashed through his mind, Nimrod chanted silently in his heart the star map from the Carium Gate to the Rebo system. After chanting it 11 times, he reached out and tossed the dice of prophecy while simultaneously raising his hand. Swoosh! A flagpole appeared in his hand out of thin air. As expected, as soon as the triangular pyramid left his hand, it hovered in midair. Nimrod raised the Red Priest uniqueness and spoke in a deep voice in the Dun language. In my name, I grant the Red Priest the power of the Nation of Disorder to aid the dice of prophecy in its divination. Black mist rose, and the static triangular pyramid began to rotate and ascend. Its ascent slowed down until it paused briefly at the highest point, then it fell. With a thought from Nimrod, the flagpole vanished, and the triangular pyramid projected a holographic star map. He memorized the star map and gazed at the now dim triangular pyramid. This time the cooldown is 9 years. Will the next one be 10? Chapter 768. The chilling, terrifying Blackstone Fortress opens its doors in welcome. 958. M30. Cyclops Star Cluster, Rebo System. On the bridge of the 6th Battle Group's flagship, the Destiny, Chapter Master Flamini stood before the hololithic strategic table. A projection suddenly flickered into existence. All lumen lights went out. A wave of suppressed gasps echoed across the bridge. Flamini opened a comms channel. No need for alarm. Adjust power distribution. Weapons system supply reduced by 30%. Prioritize lighting systems and auspex arrays. The flickering light washed over Flamini's smooth, luminous face. Whoosh! The lumen lights overhead flickered rapidly before stabilizing, illuminating the bridge once more. Flamini examined the auspex report scrolling across the viewscreen. Abnormal magnetic interference. Cause unknown. His gaze shifted back to the holographic image. The colossal construct was situated within a debris field, surrounded by the wreckage of ships. A single point of light rapidly expanded. Spiraling rings and nodes, like a genetic helix carved from static light, slowly rotated. Flamini's transhuman mind raced, trying to find a pattern, to trace the planes and vertices. A peculiar vision formed in his mind out of nothing. Winner leaned forward, staring intently at the unfolding spectacle. The art of the dance. Shifting planes. Pushing and pulling stone pillars. Deeply captivated by the sight, Winner gave the order, open the viewports. Motors whirred as the shutters descended. Flamini strode to the floor-to-ceiling panoramic viewport. Approaching slowly, sinister and terrifying like a moving prison, it silenced the officers on the bridge who had been tensely reviewing reports. The Order shadows watched with grave expressions as the inverted pyramid drew near. Massive colonnades began hundreds of kilometers from the grand structure, ending at its black surface like the fangs of a giant hound in the shadows. Flying past the sides of the colonnades was impossible. Ships had to fly straight down the center, like a funeral procession. The divination psyker gazed upon the void's majestic construct. Suddenly, a vision flooded his obsidian eyes. A filthy sewer. Himself as a child, leading ragged human refugees through a cesspool. The vision dissipated as quickly as it came. A memory unrecalled for decades suddenly surfaced, unsettling the Winner, as if the stone knew something of his past. The divination psyker gathered his thoughts, entering Magnus's first state of mind, attempting to find a docking point. A moment later, he gave up in resignation. The black structure, as if carved from a single block of obsidian by some master artisan, was seamless. It had no doors, no platforms for docking. A buzz suddenly sounded from his helmet's internal comm. Flamini answered. The voice of the Black Emperor, full of majesty, resonated through the audio matrix channel. Flamini, board an Aquilus shuttle and accompany me to the fortress prepared for you. As you will. Flamini responded instinctively, his eyes fixed on the unsettling polyhedron. The deep shadow cast by the grand structure opened like a maw. Winner suppressed the urge to mobilize the entire warband and issued his commands. An elegant Aquilus shuttle flew out from the Destiny. Winner, Flamini rose uneasily from his comfortable seat, his form wrapped in an alien substrate that shimmered with a cold light. A terrifying entity stared into his eyes, gazing into his soul. Golden wings shone into his eyes. Winner felt the majestic aura of the Black Emperor pierce the chilling, terrifying void and shine into the cabin. Through the viewport, Flamini saw the Black Emperor's majestic form, clad in black armor with golden wings, smiling as he looked towards him. His tense body gradually relaxed. Nimrod withdrew his gaze, focusing on the Blackstone Fortress. Blackstone Fortress, your doors, sealed for endless ages, should now open. I did not go to all this trouble just to skim the surface like the oil men. In Nimrod's memory, the oil men spent millennia, yet their utilization of the Blackstone fortresses remained literally superficial. They failed to penetrate the interior of any fortress. All the naval bases and orbital facilities they established were on the surface. The only one the Imperium ever entered was the 7th Blackstone Fortress, discovered on the fringes of the Typing Star territory. Its doors were always open, with changelings and other Xenos making their home and wandering within its vast halls. Within the Solar Auxilia, Nimrod had fostered Patton Drake, whose collateral family was granted a rogue trader warrant of trade. 10,000 years later, the son of the then rogue trader, Drake the Younger, would be the first human to set foot in a Blackstone Fortress's control room. Nimrod did not count Abaddon, nor Huron to whom he gifted a Blackstone Fortress, as human. As he pondered, black mist coalesced in his palms, each forming an object. Nimrod raised his gauntlet, cradling a pitch-black eyeball, and looked towards the Blackstone Fortress. The eye of the night rotated, a glimmer of light rising from it. As the gloomy light flashed, a miniature Blackstone Fortress was reflected in his eyes. A panorama unfolded, vastly different from what the naked eye could see, revealing secrets even the etheric sight could not discern. Countless Aeldari runes, unseen even in Slotta's deepest psyche, were projected onto Nimrod's retinas. He instantly understood their meaning. The Primarch's mind raced, comprehending the function of the control runes in an instant. Warp energy cannon, sealed docking bays, vast hangars. Holding it in his right hand, Nimrod's thoughts flashed. A single finger slid. In the void, the massive colonnade rotated. Within the darkness, a piercing light erupted. Winner, Flamini looked through the observation window, following the light. A diamond-shaped fissure slowly opened, revealing dozens of faintly glowing platforms. He gazed with awe at the Black Emperor's majestic figure, watching the Black Aquila fly towards the nearest platform. Winner, Flamini stepped onto the platform. Just as he was about to walk towards the Black Emperor standing before the door, his obsidian eyes were flooded with visions. The blood-red Monachia, glowing anemones, tentacles holding weapons powered by psychers as fuel aimed at him. In that moment of despair, a figure clad in black armor with golden wings descended from the sky. Distorted visions unfolded before him, making it impossible for Flamini to distinguish past from future. In his daze, he saw the Black Emperor raise a pitch-black claw, flicking his middle finger. Whoosh! The psychic distortion and mental projection vanished abruptly. You will secretly dispatch the Order Shadows and crew to take over and familiarize yourselves with the Blackstone Fortress. Possessing the Hand of Darkness and the Eye of the Night, Nimrod could locate the Blackstone Fortress and manipulate it remotely using psychic power. But he would not move this fortress. Although Tzeentch was highly likely to discover it and secretly cause trouble, he was unlikely to directly inform Horus of the Blackstone Fortress's presence within the Cyclops Fortress. On one hand, he was an enigma, rarely revealing things clearly and directly to his followers. Speaking plainly was very un-Tzeentch. From what Nimrod knew, there was only Kyrus warning Lorgar of a choice, and the Plague Wars hindering Nurgle. On the other hand, after his fall, Horus's will had consistently resisted complete corruption. His final act of resistance was when he was wounded by Russ and Lorgar seized power. The Primarch attendant, the twisted Malahurst, discovered that a part of Warmaster Horus's soul, a vestige of goodness, still refused to submit to the Chaos Gods, keeping him in a coma. He knew Horus only wanted to use the power of chaos to overthrow Old Man Huang, but refused to become a slave to the Four. To resolve the crisis, Malahurst entered Horus's warp imagery and, at the cost of his life, erased Horus's last remaining good soul. From then on, Horus truly mastered the power of chaos, but also became a slave to the Four. Nimrod did not believe Tzeentch would explicitly show Horus before he became a true slave. Even if the fickle Tzeentch proved unpredictable, it mattered not. The Blackstone Fortress's power remained unaffected. It was still a weapon of mass destruction capable of influencing the course of the war. In the Imperium, Tzeentch's gaze shifted away from Magnus, whose single eye had changed from yellow to blue, and looked towards the Blackstone Fortress. Blackstone Fortress. Fate. Change. Chapter 769. Guilliman, thank you for giving me Tyrishan, I will treat him well. In the Imperium, the impossible fortress of the Crystal Labyrinth was silent. Nimrod has obtained the Blackstone Fortress. The face growing from Tzeentch's right arm whispered, repeating, Nimrod has obtained the Blackstone Fortress. Change. The face on his right arm vanished, and a face grew from his waist. Change. As eyes flickered open and closed, the threads of fate trembled. Horus fails, a chance to submit, everything is within my grasp. The face growing from Tzeentch's left leg took delight, Horus fails, a chance to submit, everything is within my grasp. Blackstone Fortress. Typing star territory. The Fateweaver's hands moved, and the face on his back opened wide, Blackstone Fortress. Typing star territory. 960. M30. Ultima Segmentum, Macragge. In the panoramic inner court room overlooking Macragge City, the heavy marble desk was covered with papers and data slates. Golden sunlight shone through the narrow windows onto an ancient cogitator. The cold Gestalt cogitator had not arrived with the Terra Expeditionary Fleet. It was a legacy of Conor, Guilliman's adoptive father. An ancient relic of the Dark Age of technology. The great warrior King Conor had once used it to govern Macragge. By day, he was in the High Senate. By night, the inner court was his center of authority. Every 25 seconds, the antique emitted a series of faint, strange synthetic alarm tones. Beep, beep, beep. Guilliman sat up straight and checked the information on the cold Gestalt cogitator. The information came from Marius Gage. Lord Guilliman, I regret that I was unable to complete the task you assigned me. After a careful investigation, I could not find a suitable world to serve as the northern center of the 500 worlds. Espandor lacks sufficient potential, and Sotha is too remote. Guilliman did not need to pull up a star map, his superhuman brain automatically visualized his domain. Within it, there were two extremely suitable places, Gon Meteor and Kos. But both worlds had already been plucked by his brother, Nimrod. Beep, 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 the cold Gestalt cogitator's notification sounded again. Guilliman did not check the information again, his gaze reflected his memories. When he was 12, he first stepped into this room and saw Conor sitting at the desk, working hard. At that time, he was already as tall as his adoptive father, with an even sturdier build. Later, his biological father arrived, making him understand his crucial responsibility as a Primarch in the grand strategy of the human race. Both his adoptive father and biological father placed great importance on one point: contingency plans. Conor taught him, no matter how perfect a plan is, an alternative is always needed. Guilliman knew his biological father shared the same view. Do not obsess over perfection, for it is fleeting. Always maintain a second best choice. Beep, beep, beep. Guilliman leaned over and clicked the cancel button, silencing the reminder. Knock, knock, knock. Come in. Guilliman looked at the elderly woman who walked in, his adoptive mother, the current Chamberlain Tarasha Uden. Her tall, thin frame was wrapped in a white robe. Guilliman rose to greet her, my lady. The black robe he wore was of the same style as Tarasha's white robe and those of the constantly arguing senators and consuls in the High Senate. Please, sit. Guilliman waited for Tarasha to lean her cane against the chair and sit in the chair that was far too large for her body before he sat back behind the desk. During the more than a century Guilliman had presided over the inner court, the change he brought was replacing the desk and 4 chairs with models specially made for a Primarch. Tarasha gazed at Guilliman. Regarding the center of your northern domain, have you made a decision? Guilliman nodded, yes, my lady. The agricultural world, Talentus. Tarasha frowned slightly. Rebute's decision was somewhat unexpected. He usually preferred industrial worlds as regional development centers and domains for the Tetrarchs. Calth, home to Ultramar's largest shipyard, was a typical example. Thalas's gaze was deep. Who will you appoint as the Tetrarch of the North? Velsoto. Glenn Vorsoto, the former officer in charge when the 13 Legion was still called the Sons of War. Now the chapter master of the 1st Battle Group. Yet he stayed far from the court of Macragge. Another unexpected choice. Guilliman referred to him by his surname rather than his more intimate first name, indicating his distant attitude. Tarasha gazed at Rabute, pondering why he would grant the position of Tetrarch to a son he was not close to. Terra descendants. She did not finish, but Guilliman already understood her meaning. Not entirely. He is highly regarded by Nimrod. Tarasha understood. Velsoto had been dispatched by Rabute to participate in the Second Randan War, and was highly regarded by Nimrod. Serving as the Tetrarch of the North, he could rely on his good relationship with the Order Shadows, and use Gon Meteor and Kos to develop the northern sector. The best choice, Tarasha said, gripping her cane in praise. Nation of Disorder, the fourth layer of space. Deep within the black mist, Nimrod sat high upon his throne, listening to Glenn's report. My lord, father has appointed me as one of the 4 Tetrarchs of Ultramar, to lead the northern sector with Talentus as the center. Nimrod nodded with a smile. Guilliman, you're quite capable. Even after I've snatched so many worlds, you still managed to establish the 500 worlds. The 4 Tetrarchs, there's still half a century of afterglow. Nimrod knew that after the great birthday celebration, Guilliman would learn from the rebellion and believe that no single person should command a large number of Astartes. He would abolish the Tetrarch system. Not until 10,000 years later, upon waking again and finding the Empire facing many threats such as chaos and Xenos, and the Codex chapters unable to cope, would he restart the Tetrarch system. Although Glenn's appointment as a Tetrarch doesn't mean much. But Talentus is actually quite good. Kos's agriculture could only satisfy itself and the surrounding sectors. Domains like Gon Meteor, which Guilliman would have named after his adoptive father Konor, and the Forge world Gantz, which was influenced by him, relied on supplies from worlds like Ryan and Thalassa. The voyage from Talentus to worlds like Gon Meteor was shorter, and the route more stable. With Glenn in control of Talentus, the crisis response capabilities of worlds like Gon Meteor and Gantz would be stronger. And an image flashed through Nimrod's mind. Guilliman's excellent son. Even as a child, his heart was fearless. With warp resistance maxed out, he had twice crushed warp energy sources with his bare hands. The dual chosen of Khorne and Old Man Huang, well, that's not it. Tai Rishan, Titus. His home was the agricultural world of Talentus. Guilliman, thank you so much. I snatched your second company commander, the invincible Cato Sicarius, and you didn't think that was enough, so you specifically sent me Tai Rishan. Don't worry, I will treat him well. After Nimrod silently thanked Guilliman for his generosity, a bottle of golden yellow potion appeared out of thin air with a flick of his hand. Drink it, it will help you take control of Talentus. A moment later, the newly promoted Sequence 6 inches judge knelt on one knee. My lord, thank you for your gift. I will manage Talentus with care, advancing alongside Gon Meteor and Kos. After Nimrod sent Glenn back to the real world, he returned to the Wenquan Shadow. He then headed to the Astropathic Sanctum to attend the war council convened by Old Man Huang. Chapter 770, Sanguinius, Nimrod, I look forward to fighting alongside you. Nimrod's psychic projection crossed the void, descending upon the golden palace of Terra. Mortarian's gloomy gaze, from beneath his respirator mask, turned toward Nimrod. Before attending the war council, he had read the report Nimrod submitted. The Orc invasion of the Grell Abyss had resulted in over 25,000 casualties among the Order Shadows. Nimrod and his Sorceress Legion have already begun their decline. Nikare's figure flashed through Mortarian's mind. Just like those Sorceress Xenos. This is their destiny. Nimrod. Vulcan's psychic projection carried the fiery heat of the anvil. I have gathered ore from the volcano where we once competed, and forged a new suit of armor for you. Nimrod protected the common people, shielding them from harm. He, too, should use his talents to forge for his brother, shielding Nimrod from harm. I look forward to your gift, Nimrod responded with a smile. Although his armor hadn't broken since he began wearing Ferris's work, who would refuse extra stock? Especially armor forged by the Lord of Drakes. Perturbo's icy blue eyes flickered, and just as he thought of that unfinished work, the great doors rumbled open. The Emperor entered side by side with the Mars Forge director. Malkador and Constantine Valder followed behind him. The Emperor accepted the tributes of the assembly, and after taking his seat, he spoke. The Aeldari craftworld Mag Silas has conducted a brutal raid on Siriaret, and millions of humans have been cruelly slaughtered. The crimes of the Xenos must be punished. His gaze swept over the Primarchs, finally landing on the two with wings on their backs. Nimrod with his golden wings, and Sanguinius with his angel wings. Nimrod, my Pegasus, you can arrive the fastest. Sanguinius, your legion is closest to Siriaret. Hearing this, Nimrod couldn't help but recall the details of the Battle of Siriaret defense. He remembered this campaign as the one where the Vexation cult officially announced its formation. Although the Vexation cult had already been deployed during the Randan War, to combat the powerful Randan Bone Eaters, the Psychic Titans at that time were experimental models, modified from Warhound's Titans. Now, the technology had matured. Nimrod's superhuman brain recalled an obscure record. In the year 946, on Skagen V in the southern segmentum solar, the population surged due to migration. After the entire planet fell into total civil war, the local Adeptus Arbits appealed to the sector governor for aid. The Adeptus Arbits had not expected the support to be a Titan legion bearing no markings. The arrival of the terrifying, roaring god machines caused all soldiers to lose their courage and lay down their weapons. Nimrod pulled back his thoughts. Remembering the Aeldari craftworld that Sanguinius had wasted by throwing it into a star, he immediately spoke. By your will. Sanguinius's eyes lit up. His sons, lost to the red thirst, constantly reminded him that his legion might become the second empty pedestal beneath the Tower of Hegemony. Nimrod had reshaped the Reapers into the Order Shadows, perhaps he could gain some revelation by fighting alongside him. This was also a good opportunity to deepen the mutual understanding between the two legions and solidify their political alliance. The alliance he had established with Nimrod, Magnus, and Chagatai based on the use of psychic powers. Father, I would be happy to accept this mission. His wings spread like a curtain of fresh snow. He turned his head toward Nimrod. I look forward to fighting alongside you. As Nimrod and Sanguinius nodded to each other in greeting, the Emperor looked toward his son sitting alone at the end of the long table. He cast a look of loathing at the scriptures covering the man's bald head and face. Lorgar, how many more times must I warn you? I am not a god. When will you understand that your mission is to lead the word-bearers in expanding our borders, not in proselytizing? Father. Lorgar began to explain, but the Emperor had no patience for his absurd rhetoric. He stood up abruptly, leaving Lorgar stunned. Vulcan looked at the dejected Lorgar and spoke up to remind him, Father has always emphasized the imperial truth, you should remember his warnings. Humanity needs faith. Lorgar's tone was firm, laced with fanaticism. It has been so since ancient times, faith gives them strength. You, all of you, Father, you will all understand. My brother, you must understand, Horus Lupercal said earnestly. Father is a great man, but he is still a human. He is not a god. It doesn't matter what a god says, the truth is that he is a god. Seeing Lorgar begin to recite incessantly, Nimrod prepared to end his psychic projection. Vulcan saw Nimrod's projection rapidly dimming. I will have the armor sent to Siriaret. Thank you for the gift. Nimrod's body turned into light and vanished, returning to the Wenquan shadow. As he walked toward his office, he considered which warbands to mobilize for the battle. A moment later, Nimrod leaned back against his throne and said to Arsena Dun. The Emperor has ordered Sanguinius and me to punish Mag Silas, the craftworld that raided Siriaret. The 8th, 11th, and 12th warbands will serve as the main force. The 1st and 10th battle groups will also participate. Considering that the 1st and 10th battle groups had been in continuous combat and suffered significant losses, Nimrod decided to only partially conscript them. Assemble all librarians, Thomas will have much to gain at Mag Silas. Although the Iandan Farseer Melendry Silversoul wouldn't discover spirit stones in the Crone worlds until the 33rd millennium, and current Aeldari craft worlds were somewhat lacking, it was still a valuable prize. The battle psychers of Mag Silas were crazed, but the powerful psychic spells they mastered were top tier even among many craft worlds. The combat power of a warlock titan was no weaker than the psychic titans of the Vexation cult. Before the snow-haired Primarch attendant withdrew, he reminded him, My lord, Evos awaits your audience. Let him in. Evos Jovan, dressed in a well-fitted black Lord Hunter suite, walked through the palace gates. As he passed by Itzek, he gritted his teeth in discomfort. My lord. After bowing respectfully, he began his report. Since you put me in charge of the genetic modification of Upsilon class and Phi class visa candidates in 933. Nimrod had left the Sigma class and Tau class, those with the lowest negative psychic levels, to the ordinary apothecaries and their attendants. The chief medical officer of the Solar Auxilia, Dr. Evos, was responsible for the more difficult Upsilon class and Phi class modifications. I was responsible for the modification of 592 people in total, including all eligible Visa boys. The Visa had excellent physical qualities and were a top-tier source of soldiers. The recruitment range did not include Chi class and above negative psychers. Recruiting all eligible boys did not affect the reproduction of the various tribes. I used the abilities you bestowed upon me to prepare adaptive elixirs for them and personally performed the surgeries. In the end, 316 people passed the modification and became Order Shadows. I conducted tests on the Order Shadows. Among them, 129 fell back to Sigma class, and 63 fell back to Tau class. Evos checked his data slate and reported one by one. I believe this is due to the innate perception you granted the Order Shadows conflicting with their blunt talent, reaching a balance. Nimrod nodded with satisfaction. 124 Order Shadows with varying degrees of immunity to psychic attacks, this result pleased him. They and the Visa would all play a role in the upcoming war with Mag Silas. Evos slid his finger across the screen and continued the report. Of the failed candidates, only 13 unfortunately died. Among the remaining, 58 showed strong rejection reactions during the first surgery. The Mentor of Disorder listened to Evos's report while simultaneously activating his Ling vision, staring at his teal-colored spiritual body to confirm he had digested the potion. After Evos finished his report, Nimrod flipped his right hand, and a bottle of golden yellow potion appeared out of thin air in his palm. Evos, your performance has satisfied me. This is your reward. Evos joyfully took the potion. Before he even uncapped it, a rich aroma of malt permeated his nostrils. He opened the cap and impatiently tilted his head back to drink it down. As the potion entered his mouth, it frothed with a large amount of foam, like a fine craft wheat beer. Gulp, gulp. Evos drank it all in one go, wanting more. The newly promoted Sequence 7 Feet Harvest Priest withdrew his overflowing power and knelt on one knee. Thank you for the gift, my lord. I will redouble my efforts to serve you. Nimrod nodded and gave his instructions. Your task is to return to Ryan and plant medicinal herbs that will aid in genetic modification, especially those suitable for the Visa. At the same time, continue to be responsible for the modification of Upsilon class and Phi class Visa candidates. Evos said respectfully, as you command. Chapter 771, Sanguinius comforts Captain Athena Ducard. In the Siriaret system, the flagship of the Blood Angels, the Red Tier. Sanguinius's flagship was different from those of the other Primarchs. There wasn't even a seat for him on the bridge, as he himself had requested. His command throne was located on the upper level of the Red Tier's dorsal tower. Ever since Sanguinius began governing his legion, he had enforced a unique brand of humility. He refused to serve as captain of any ship within the fleet, striving to avoid undermining the authority of his commanders. As Admiral Athena Ducard commanded, Sanguinius's pure white wings were folded to their smallest, and he stood with one hand resting on the high back of the female captain's chair. His dazzling hair fell naturally, and he maintained a statue-like stillness and silence. The members of the Primarch's honor guard were the same, waiting on the port and starboard sides of the bridge deck, hidden behind deep red curtains. The command hub of the Red Tier resembled an amphitheater. At the very bottom was the main console operated by Ducard and her core naval officers. Rising in 3 tiers like spectator seating were the semicircular secondary and tertiary workstations for the remaining command personnel, gunners, engineers, and detection specialists. Like Sanguinius, Ducard did not look down upon her subordinates like some aloof queen. Ducard was like the center of everything, the fulcrum of the starship and the fleet she led. Gold ornaments, precious rubies, and gemmed teardrops hung from Sanguinius's armor, with silk coverings and auric chainmail draped over the ornate plate. He gazed at the holographic image before him. Except for a few warships left to guard Baal, almost the entire Legion fleet had been deployed. 239 capital ships, mostly heavy cruisers and battleships. Few legions could match the firepower of the Blood Angels, the Iron Hands, the Ultramarines. Only the Order Shadow's capital ship firepower was significantly stronger than the Blood Angels, with 4 Gloriana-class battleships and 15 Relic-class battleships, yet the Blood Angels' firepower had yet to yield results. Ducard's delay in encircling the Eldar craftworld lay in the Legion fleet's focus on a single strategy: fire strikes. Of the 492 secondary vessels, most were slow-moving escorts. Frigates and destroyers were few and far between. The escorts served only as the eyes of the large cruisers, using their mounted auspex to scan and lock onto enemy ship positions. The speed deficiency was magnified when encountering the Eldar craftworld. The star of Siriuret shone brightly, and there were no asteroids or planetary debris in the system, yet that massive warship remained difficult to capture. Salvos of lance fire and sustained bombardment from macro cannons caused feedback runes to flash constantly, but there were no true results, no burning enemy wreckage. The debris floating in the void all belonged to escort ships. The phantoms projected by the craftworld's holofield showed no significant change. My lord, I need the help of your librarians. I need them to lock onto the position of that cunning craftworld. Of course, they would be happy to assist you, Sanguinius said with a smile, a number appearing in his mind. 139. Even 5 capital ships. The number did not come from a Primarch's superhuman calculation, but from Sanguinius's innate talent, precognition of the future. Sanguinius opened a channel to contact his First of Blood, 1st Company Captain Raldoran. A moment later, blood-red armor stepped onto the bridge. Raldoran bore heraldry engraved with the ebony patterns of the hunter tribes of their home world, Baal. He removed his helmet, revealing a gaunt and determined face beneath high-swept gray-white hair. Father, the librarians are performing divinations. In their game against the Eldar's mad witches, they have captured the solar sails for the first time. Raldoran, who always planned for everything, had already made preparations in advance. He would not forcibly interfere unless Admiral Ducard made a request. But if she had a need, Raldoran would respond immediately. He also held a unique title within the Legion, Chapter Master, a title widely and sincerely recognized by Ducard and the others. Very good, that is exactly why they are so important. An appreciative smile appeared on Sanguinius's face. I truly wish my brothers could understand this. Librarians enrich our options. Without them, we would need a long hunt to force the Eldar craftworld into a narrow area. His voice was soft as he comforted the dim-eyed Ducard. Ducard, this is not due to your incompetence. The Eldar were once an ancient race that ruled the galaxy. In certain aspects, they indeed possess unique strengths. My lord, I understand. Amidst a sharp beeping sound, Ducard hurriedly turned her head. Ships appeared out of nowhere on the screen. Confirm fleet identity. The workstation became a flurry of activity as the escort ship readings were identified one by one and marked with flashing runes. Order shadows. Communication link being established. Ducard's voice suddenly rose in pitch. They have deployed into an attack formation. They are firing. Ducard shouted in a sharp, confused tone. Raldoran walked to the other side of her chair and looked at the screen along with Sanguinius. Colored light leapt up and rolled across. Rainbows streaked across the screen. Dazzling flames erupted. Their attacks have hit. A hum sounded in Raldoran's helmet. While Ducard's mind was blank, Chapter Master Raldoran spoke to remind her. The librarians confirmed that the Order Shadow's fire strike uses some kind of psychic weapon. Ducard immediately checked the scan results of the Auspex array and indeed found high-frequency etheric readings. The captain was silent for a few seconds. Their weapons have dealt direct damage to the Eldar craftworld. Sanguinius looked at Ducard. The comfort from moments ago had now turned into a negative effect. Nimrod is seen as one favored by the Omniscia. His legion possesses some special weapons. That psychic artillery is one of them. Ducard turned and saw Sanguinius's perfect face, which bore obvious concern. She quickly adjusted her mindset. My lord, I understand. I will immediately adjust the plan to provide support for boarding operations. Seeing Ducard fully committed, Sanguinius nodded to Raldoran, and the two of them left. Sanguinius stepped out of the elevator. Before the command throne of the dorsal tower, the red-robed tech priests in attendance looked at Sanguinius and Raldoran simultaneously. The link is ready. Holographic projection, Raldoran asked. Interfered with by energy fluctuations, the connection is weak. A synthesized Vox voice rang out. Audio primary. Raldoran followed Sanguinius onto the holographic platform, and light bloomed. In the flickering, barely focused illusion, he discerned the dangerous figure of Lord Nimrod, along with 3 other figures, one tall and 2 short. The taller figure required no close inspection to identify, the Night Lord of the Order Shadow's 8th Battle Group, Thierry Vieira. The tallest of all Astartes. Through the silhouettes, Raldoran vaguely identified the other 2. The Lord of the 11th Battle Group, the powerful Pelkashelny. The Lord of the 12th Battle Group, the agile William Wood. Chapter 772 Raldoran, we will become the anvil before the Order Shadows, and perhaps the hammer. Raldoran, the first company captain of the Blood Angels, his gaze darkened slightly. Ever since his Gene father attended the War Council, he had been looking forward to fighting alongside the Order Shadows. Raldoran most hoped to meet Arbitrator Lord Howard Fend of the 1st Battle Group and Dark Lord Bukayo Arshaven of the 3rd Battle Group, who had the most conquest achievements. They were often mentioned alongside himself, Ezekiel Abaddon of the Luna Wolves, and Sigismund of the Imperial Fists. Raldoran was also curious about that Reaper Lord. He wore a Rus wolf helmet, a Merkai cloak, and carried a Kraken sword, a provocation to the frenzied wolves. Thierry Vieira, a pure warrior. He defeated Akulduna. Raldoran's eyes suddenly lit up, even he was not certain he could defeat Fulgrim's champion. The 2nd company commander of the Emperor's Children was never praised as a commander, but he was undoubtedly a transcendent swordsman. As a youth, before his augmentation, he had repeatedly defeated Teriel Collins, the ancient thunder warrior who taught him. Raldoran believed Abaddon, Sigismund, and Karn also had no certainty of victory against Akulduna. Vieira had actually defeated Akulduna in a duel. When Raldoran first heard this, he couldn't help but suspect it was a rumor that Vieira had used a trick. Until over 40 years ago, during joint operations with the Luna Wolves and Emperor's Children, he confirmed it from Akulduna himself. He defeated me cleanly and decisively. We agreed to fight again. Since then, I have been honing my sword skills. Raldoran saw no hint of defeat in Akulduna. Only the shining edge of a swordsman's fighting spirit. As Raldoran pondered, Sanguinius's white wings lifted slightly as he looked at the tall figure with black armor and golden wings. Nimrod, your fleet has opened the path to Magkasithral for us. Beautiful colored light. Psionic artillery. Nimrod didn't explain, responding vaguely to Sanguinius's query. He shifted the topic to the objective. Sanguinius, you arrived first, what is your plan? Sanguinius folded his wings. Raldoran and I read the records of the expeditionary fleet's encounters with the Eldar craftworld. Their ships have some kind of teleportation device inside. Void cannon fire cannot eliminate the Xenos. They will escape before being destroyed. Nimrod knew Sanguinius spoke the truth. The interior of a craftworld also contained various webway portals connecting to certain planets of the ancient Eldar Empire. Even if he ordered the ether cannon fire to destroy the Eldar craftworld, most of them could escape safely. Boarding actions to cause as much damage as possible before the Eldar abandoned the craftworld was the optimal strategy. Of course, the core reason he agreed with Sanguinius's strategy was to seize the opportunity to acquire the psionic secrets held by the famous warlocks of Magkasithral. I agree. As Nimrod spoke, light and shadow flashed in his eyes. The Primarch's telekinetic power surged out, spreading across the holographic platform. An elegant holographic projection of an Eldar warship appeared out of thin air. On the green hull, 2 areas glowed. One area was pitch black, the other blood red. Sanguinius stared at the 2 highlighted areas on the outside of the projection. The docks. Our legions will land separately. Whoever reaches the central node first is the anvil, the later arrival is the hammer. Sanguinius understood. Storm and Hammer was created by Amadeus Dukeen, the former Legion Master of the 10th Legion before Manusi's return. Horus highly praised it, and Guilliman studied it seriously. Nimrod had briefly taught Manusi when he returned. The Order Shadows had also incorporated Storm and Hammer. Horus had proposed this tactic when the Blood Angels and Luna Wolves were at Melchior, purging the Nephilim who enslaved the system. The Iron Hands had already iterated on the tactics that made them famous among many legions. The method Horus and he used at Melchior did not strictly follow Dukeen's deployment at the Battle of Rust Star. Of course, no matter how it changed, Dukin's strategic thinking remained the same. The anvil attracts the enemy's main force like a magnet. The falling hammer sweeps through the enemy with the force of a storm. I agree. 95,000 blood angels. Hearing this, Nimrod knew Sanguinius had deployed the main force of his legion. Before the great birthday celebration, the blood angels' strength reached 120,000, now it would not exceed 100,000. 91,000. Nimrod deployed 3 main battle groups this time, the 8th, 11th, and 12th battle groups. The actual combined strength of the 3 battle groups was 93,000. But through cumulative false reporting over 60 years, the War Council's records showed only 72,000. The smallest, the 12th battle group, actually had 23,000 men. To outsiders, it appeared to be less than 20,000, only 18,500. The second largest battle group, the 11th battle group, had a strength of 34,000. After cumulative false reporting, the number was 25,900. Among the remaining participating forces, besides the 1st and 10th battle groups, there were 2,190 librarians from 7 other battle groups, 1,520 honor guard from this term, and 1,030 visa recruits with varying degrees of psionic resistance. I look forward to our meeting on the Craftworld, Sanguinius said with a smile. Although he was an ally of Nimrod, he had not yet met Nimrod in person. For most of the Great Crusade, Sanguinius had been expanding territory in the Typing Star territory with his close friend Horus. I also look forward to that moment, Nimrod replied with a smile. Among his allies, he had followed Old Man Huang to Prospero to find Magnus and had conquered the Squat Alliance in the Galactic Core. He had also been to Shigoris to persuade the Swift Chagatai and invited him to the crusade against the Randon homeworld. Among the alliance, Sanguinius was the only one he hadn't met. Raldoran followed Sanguinius in exchanging greetings with the allies. His eyes swept over Pel Koscielny and William Wood, pausing briefly on the tall giant Thierry Vieira. After the holographic projection dissipated, Raldoran spoke to the turning angel. The Blood Angels have more participating troops than the Order Shadows. We are more skilled in shock assault operations. We will become the anvil before the Order Shadows. His eyes flickered, his arm tightening around his helmet, and perhaps, the hammer. Sanguinius saw the fire of a warrior in his son's eyes, his wings unfurling with a snap. He lightly touched the ebony-patterned sigil of the hunter tribes on Raldoran's armor. My first captain of blood. Your muzzle flash will roar on Magkasithral, and your blade will sever the heads of the Xenos, mad warlocks. Raldoran bowed, his helmet covering his resolute face. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.